Those people have been involved.
Yeah.
It's not like you think you get to that point in life, you're like, I just got to write it out. Nope.
I know. Okay. Well, let me, I'll call this meeting to order of the, here, one sec. It's not a meeting without my gavel. Your Honor, exactly. It's kind of, I will call a meeting to order for the Federal Way City Council special meeting for September 23rd, 2024. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so we've got some budget presentations. First, we'll hear from Judge Dave Larson, the presiding judge with the Federal Way Municipal Court. Then we're going to hear from Chief Andy Wong with the Police Department presentation, and then the Public Works Department Deputy Director Desiree Winkler. And then we'll have an opportunity for council discussions. You know, we'll do that with each presentation, and we'll see if we've got any discussions after that.
Mayor,
Yes.
could we address the absent council members?
Oh, you bet. We have Councilmember Asefa Dawson is absent. Where is she at again?
Okay.
Vacation.
Vacation and unavailable. Then we have Councilmember Jack Walsh is working and unavailable. And then Councilmember Tran, who is on vacation out of the country. Okay, and all of those absences are excused. Okay, all right, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you. I'm going to try to keep it brief. Wanted to highlight our staff. We did have one vacancy. Somebody got hired by Superior Court. We just filled that a few days ago. So we have a total of 16 staff, including me, all doing a great job down there. The things I wanted to talk about that are important for our community is our partnerships that we have. Pierre Kent is a continuing partnership. We're in our 4th year with them, along with Des Moines and Renton. Des Moines, we share grant money from the Administrative Office of Courts, from the legislature actually, that helps us pay for peer navigators in our court, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. The King County Library System, we partner with them on our resource center that meets the first and third of the month, a Thursday of the month. The resource center has varying participation by providers, but we have somewhere between 20 and 25 service providers that are at the resource center. One example of how well it works is the Department of Licensing is there on the 3rd Thursday. A gentleman in court hadn't had his license for 20 years. He went there to the Department of License to be able to talk to somebody face to face and got his license back after 20 years.
Wow.
And people are able to, if they're having problems getting set up with treatment because of insurance, they're able to deal with those issues on the spot, and it's kind of one-stop shopping. We also hold our community court in another room there at the library, so our people in community court have access to those services. And we refer about 40 people from the court that may not even have a case anymore. Their case might have been resolved. We still refer them to the resource center. And because it's a partnership with the library system that's open to the public, and so there's tons of people that are served by that. SCORE has done it, and on to next with what SCORE's done in recent years in terms of some of their jail reentry services. They've cooperated well with us. And then King County, we have what's called PALS. We've had that for a number of years now, and pretrial assessment linkage services. However, it's been underutilized. We used to have 5 assessment dates per week that we could set somebody up with, so we'd be able to have somebody have a substance use disorder assessment within 24 hours. But because it's been underutilized by council and by the parties, it's cut down to 1 day a week, but it's still a program that's not costing the city any money. And none of these programs, these partnerships, are actually costing the city any money because it's either by grant with Pierre Kent or by just a mutual agreement with King County and SCORE and the King County Library System. So any questions about that, I'll be glad to answer when I'm done. We did have some issues with our grant with the Administrative Office of the Courts. They're construing it very narrowly, that everything has to be related to community court. And with Des Moines, they only have a DUI court. So because of the issues, even though we've been at this for 3 years, because of the issues, Des Moines agreed to cut their peer navigator from 24 hours a week to 4 hours a month. And because their DUI court only meets 4 hours a month. What we did, though, is we took advantage of that, and now we have, because everything has to relate to community court or getting people into community court or therapeutic courts, is we now have taken that extra time, that extra peer, and we have them there every morning at SCORE, looking for people that will be eligible for therapeutic courts and therapeutic intervention. And so Federal Way has actually benefited from the issue, and but it's basically in part because of the way the statute, RCW 2.30 is worded, where things have to be related to therapeutic courts. There's so much more that we have to do when it comes to peer intervention and everything else. And so it's nice to get in trouble or at least have an issue related to the fact you're serving too many people. They wanted us to serve less, and we have it, so we're serving the same number. We've just readjusted how we do it so that it's all focused on just getting people into community court. And in the meantime, if they benefit in some other way, even though they don't go to community court, then so be it. At least though that all the attempts are related to that, which then satisfies that grant requirements, at least as it is now. And thank you very much for the city attorney's office for helping us work out some contract language. So if we're wrong on it, we have an exit out of the contract with Pierre Kent. Because we're really fighting hard to make sure that the people that need it the most are served in our community. And this issue actually has benefited Federal Way citizens because of the issue. We just turned it around and made it into something positive. Something that you're going to be concerned about, obviously, is public defense caseload standards. This Thursday, the Supreme Court's having a public hearing. They normally don't do that. It's going to be down in Olympia on the issue, and if you're not familiar with it, our public defense firm, I'm not sure exactly how many lawyers they have, but they've told us that if this passes, they'll need to have 40 lawyers. But they're spread across multiple jurisdictions. They do a lot of jurisdictions in Washington, in King County, and I think it's about 9 jurisdictions. So that would really require influx of new attorneys, plus it would aggravate the already issue across the state with public defender shortages. But if you're interested in that from an executive or legislative standpoint in terms of how much it's going to cost, because the public defense contract is administered by the mayor's office, not by the court, then that's maybe something that you would like to be heard, and there may be already plans to be heard on that by the different cities and counties that are going to be affected by it. I'm pretty proud of the way our city has done public defense, because they didn't go with the low bidder, they went with the best firm. And it costs the taxpayers a little more, but we get good representation of the people that come to court, and so that we're fortunate for that. The other thing, and Steve Groom and I talked about this in my office, some of the pressures that exist from the state legislature and from the Supreme Court itself on legal financial obligations. Yes, sir.
Can we go back a step?
Sure.
How likely do you think it is that they would do this? And
That mean the public defense standards?
yeah,
I don't know. It's, again, I got to be careful about how much I say, because I don't want to blur the lines in terms of my other activity.
right.
But there's a lot of surprises. We just recently had a Supreme Court order requiring each court to create a separate local rule that for redaction of documents, which is going to make it very confusing for defense counsel to have to appear in multiple courts. That's really kind of an unpredictable way to deal with things. I've actually taken advantage of that to deal with the public defense firm, Stuart McNichols, the cities they work with. I've already coordinated with all the judges to make sure we can create one rule among all the cities, but that's an example of kind of the unpredictability that comes out of the court, so I have no way of predicting that.
Do you, in regard to order of magnitude, do you think, or impact, do you think it would be fair to say it would perhaps double the cost of public defense?
I haven't sat down and figured that out. I've actually written a white paper on how to actually have a sustainable way to address public defense in Washington that I can share with the council and you, that would actually require the state to be partners in this, because I don't think it can be just you can't make local communities do this. We have 300, I think it's 320 different jurisdictions responsible for public defense.
Right.
Between the cities and counties. And every jurisdiction is responsible to pay for it out of their own pocket. And I think that encourages some practices that might not be in the best interest of the way we're supposed to operate. And so that position paper is actually something that if you'd like, I can share with you. But ultimately, it's a real chance that you're going to have a huge budget impact. And I don't know that in the past, there hasn't been really any, how would I use the word, compassion for local jurisdictions when it comes to those costs. My view is that there needs to look at it globally and not just this narrow treating symptoms. The whole system, the way we do public defense, has to be looked at globally and from a systemic basis instead of just trying to, again, treat symptoms, because that's all that rule does, is to treat symptoms.
All right, thank you.
So if, I would be concerned, put it that way. Enough concerned where I would at least coordinate with other cities or whatever to make sure your voice is heard Thursday. So, then on legal financial obligations, there's a statute that's existed forever, RCW 10.01.160, that's prohibited us from charging costs to indigent people, court costs to indigent people. The Supreme Court in the Blazina case kind of elevated that to almost a constitutional right. And so there's a lot of times when we are not allowed to charge court costs to people that are claimed to be indigent. And that has affected how much, and again, we're not in the revenue business in the courts, we're adjudicating cases, but if you see reductions in revenue, and from criminal cases, it's largely because of Blazina. And then the legislature, I can't remember, 2020, let me see if my court administrator she's on vacation. Let me see if she sent me the text on that particular legislation. No. There was some legislation that allows people to petition to have their old financial obligations forgiven, and so it's basically there's a drive to make it so that fines and costs and those kind of things are substantially reduced and eliminated in a lot of cases, or replaced with community service. Last time I looked, I think the city was owed over $20 million in past fines and costs, and I don't know what it is right now, but that is something where if you see decreases in revenue, and then also the number of infractions that have been filed in recent years, that's gone down, so you're not going to see that kind of revenue from infractions. Like I say, usually we don't talk about revenue, but there is a stark decrease, I think, and so that's the explanations for that. So be glad to answer any questions or any concerns.
Councilmember Honda?
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Judge. So I have a few questions. One on performance measures under your, in the budget book.
Uh-huh.
It talks about non-traffic infraction hearings, criminal non-traffic hearings, civil hearings. So if someone is cited for having a shopping cart where they're not supposed to have it?
That's a civil infraction, right? It would be under the non-traffic civil infractions.
So under civil hearings?
No, civil hearings would be like civil impounds, like somebody comes in like on a stolen vehicle or a vehicle that's impounded, they're appealing that. But
Okay.
it would be a non-traffic infraction is what
Okay.
it'd be.
Would, if someone was, is there for a drug case, would that be there too?
A drug case?
Yeah,
No, that'd be a criminal non-traffic,
that would be criminal,
non-traffic.
okay. And I actually had a question on fine collection, because I know you've talked to us before about how much money we haven't been able to collect. How does one prove that they're unable to pay any fines?
You have to just question them on the record, and I'll just be completely transparent. Sometimes we'll go through that exercise, and I'll whittle it down, and the person will say, well, I'll pay it today.
Okay,
So it can be a little frustrating, but it's part of the case law, part of the rules that we have to follow, and we have to follow those whether we like it or not.
and then my last question is, are 2 judges enough to serve the people of Federal Way?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's, what's happened is, it's, things have, our caseloads are actually down, but allows us to actually have better quality justice, whereas before it was, you know, remember I mentioned infractions are down? Well, we used to have special calendars that would parallel jury trials and everything else to try to get all the cases done. We don't have to do that anymore. We can actually have quality, instead of just trying to jam things through.
So why are infractions down?
I think that would be, have to be asked of the police department. I think it has to do with the fact that there's been other priorities because of the change of events that have occurred and then staffing and everything else. But that police department would know that. And I'm not throwing that out there as some kind of blame or anything else. It's just a fact. And I believe that has to do probably a lot with the fact that there's been, you know, training and new training staff and everything else. And again, because of so many other things that are happening, I'm sure that traffic has been a lower priority.
Thank you.
You just noticed that those calendars are lighter and
Well, the
everything.
actual filings,
Oh, yeah.
we used to get 13,000 or so infractions a year, and now it's down to 4,000, 5,000.
Interesting.
That's
Yeah.
pretty significant.
It is very significant.
Yeah.
We'll dig into it. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Councilmember Daniel.
Yeah.
Not that we're looking for more work, but.
Oh, I know, exactly.
But, yeah.
But it's,
But those things are, the thing about those hearings is they're usually one hearing, and usually people can afford to pay.
yeah,
And with criminal hearings, there's multiple hearings, and it takes up a lot more of our time.
interesting.
Yeah. So, Paul?
right, thank you.
Or Mr. McDaniel?
Yeah, thank you. I have a couple questions. First of all, if anybody hasn't seen the community court, that's actually a very interesting project. I've sat in that one time, and I found that to be a very unique opportunity for people. And is that classified as a therapeutic court then?
Yes,
Is it the
yes.
same thing? Okay. I really do like that program. My question is going to be on Piers Kent, the first one.
Yeah.
How many Federal residents get supported with that? I've talked to people and I've seen it, but how much is that engaged with our?
Well, I don't have those numbers right with me right now, but it's in the, I know that it's, from the day we've started, it's been thousands, you know, but people, the way we do it is called barrier-free access to peers. The way the justice system works is always seemed to be a quid pro quo. A prosecutor has to approve something, or somebody has to go through a hoop. In Federal Way, we have it so it's barrier-free. If somebody comes in to pay a traffic ticket, they can access a peer navigator. When I spoke at the drug court conference, 2022 or 23, I can't remember what it was, on this approach, I started out, are you willing to live with the success you'll never know about, right? Because helping that person in that way, we'll never know whether it helped or not. But in the court system, what we do is we have too much quid pro quo, and because we want to manage it, control it. And what we do in Federal Way is kind of, it's become the model for other jurisdictions too, where it's unlimited access to peer navigators. But always now we have to make it always in the tone of funneling people to community court to be in compliance with the grant.
Okay, so, okay, I understood that part. And
Yeah,
then-
so I couldn't tell you exact numbers, but if Tiziana would know, the court administrator, Ms. Giazzi, would be able to provide those numbers.
Okay, I'll check in with her then. And then, does Piers Kent, you had mentioned community service as one of the things that we've been trying to work on or to put in play more. Does Piers Kent work with the community service? factor?
They're actually one of our peer, community service providers, so people can do community service through Peer Kent. So it's helped us a lot. Now, one of the things I've advocated for years is structured community service. And we used to, back in the day, before some of you might have been on the council, I had it arranged with the fire department, the school district, different places to have people be able to work off community service by benefiting the community directly, and we'd let them, for financial obligations, we'd let them get a higher reimbursement rate if they went to those groups, and for criminal cases, we would make our mandatory community service be with those groups, but we haven't really gained any traction on that over the years, because there's been issues of funding the position that would manage it and supervise it and everything else. But it would help in our community if we had something like that. Work crew, I know the Parks Department has work crew, we have work crew. That's, since COVID, that's work crew's kind of died for court. So, but, and that benefits Seattle, the Parks benefits Federal Way though.
Okay.
So it would be, if we could get our work together, we might be able to have some of that community service directly benefit Federal Way too.
All right, keep that in mind then. Two last questions. One is, we had mentioned about the, I think think they're calling it substance abuse disorder nowadays, or
Right.
addiction and stuff like that. It's the number one thing I hear about when I talk to people still, for years now. We do a lot of citing for it. What percentage of the people we actually cite end up showing up to court?
I couldn't tell you, Judge Bales has the arraignment calendar this quarter, and so he's the one that would be able to and he's not available today, be able to tell you those exact numbers, but people do show up for, do show up for court, and our warrant, by the way, when we've changed our court to be more therapeutic, the whole court, our failure to appear rate has just plummeted. It just, like today on my calendar with, this afternoon, I had 40 pretrial cases, and I think I had 5 FTAs. 5 people not appear, because people feel like they can come to court and there's going to be solutions. There's still people going to jail, but bottom line is that more people are showing up. It's a whole another issue about what we do with the drug cases when we ultimately resolve them, and I've done my best to kind of keep pushing people. But a lot of times the person will they'll get a warrant and they'll be in jail, and they'll accept a 3 days or 3 days credit offer because it's easier, versus accepting an offer that will keep them coming to either a community court or coming to probation. So a lot of times you'll see some of those cases where they'll resolve with just credit for time served on the jail and no intervention. And so what we do is I still try to get them to just talk to a peer navigator and try to get some kind of intervention, even if the court is going to retain jurisdiction. But yeah, so those are difficult cases, because I actually testified in the legislature during the Blake bill on the idea that you can develop this intent, but if you don't have the infrastructure in place, be able to accommodate the intent of what you're doing, it's not going to work. And it really hasn't worked in many jurisdictions, because for these reasons, that there's just some of the stuff isn't available, or the organization or the fragmentation isn't working.
Gotcha. Last question. So treatment. I hear a lot of people providing services, but not always treatment. When we have someone who comes into our community and ends up being in the court system, and it's usually some kind of addiction issue, not a mental illness, but addiction issues, what is the option and what treatments are available? I know at one point there was a time frame,
Yeah.
but now I think that's lowered. What are our options? What treatment facilities do we have around here?
So the one thing that Ideal Option is a group that's come into Federal Way to offer medication-assisted treatment. And the benefit of medication-assisted treatment, and there's all kinds of problems with it too that have surfaced over the, and because we're dealing with human nature, we're dealing with folks when it comes to their compliance and stuff. But what medication-assisted treatment does is it provides, in other words, the number one fear of somebody under addiction is that they're going to withdraw. And that's why you see a higher violence and thefts and everything else, because that's just a real desperate need on their part. And so if you can get somebody some kind of a replacement for fentanyl and those kind of things with medication-assisted treatment, the need to go buy drugs to fulfill that need goes away, which means that, or at least is curtailed, which means that you're going to theoretically have less theft, because they won't need to steal to satisfy that need. And it works with some people, it doesn't work with others. And but as far as the theory that I truly believe that substance use disorder, at its core, there's some kind of mental health issue going on that people are not treating, and that therefore they're medicating with drugs. There's always some kind of underlying issue there, and it's and so one of the mistakes we make is just to focus on SUD and not focus on the mental health, and then that's why people relapse. I don't know if any of you have seen the Lalu video, the Know Me Before You Judge Me. If you haven't, I'll send that to you too. It's a story of a guy, we had the forum back in December 2017. He testified about, he talked about his journey, 13 years in the system, and what it really was those underlying mental health issues. As soon as he started dealing with those, he was able to address the addiction. So you have to look at the whole person, and it's one person at a time kind of deal, because everybody's different. And what my job is to try to figure out what button I can push to get them motivated. But once they're motivated, if we're not ready to transition them into something meaningful and organized, then we fail. And we've done our best to try to make sure that when somebody's ready, they're handed off to to appropriate, even with the peer navigator. I'll give you a story. A guy was in community court. It was 3 days before he was supposed to go an inpatient. He was having huge urges to go use, right? And you could see it as he's sitting there, his body language and everything else. So I just asked him, I said, are you having difficulty? He said, yeah. So we paired him up with a peer navigator to make sure that he could make it those 3 days till he got an inpatient, and that helped him be successful. Whereas if that wouldn't have been available, he probably would have relapsed and never gone back to inpatient. That's an example of how the power of having somebody that's been through the system themselves walking alongside you as you're waiting for that intervention.
So,
Like I said, it doesn't always work, but
gotcha. So I guess, let me phrase it. The inpatient, so do we send someone, did we connect them with Piers Kent, and then Piers Kent would connect them with the treatment facility? or-
so the way, Peer Kent does a great job for us in terms of getting bed dates for people, and a lot of times we're with inpatient. There's sometimes somebody will be out of custody for inpatient. A lot of times somebody will be in custody, and Peer Kent will work to help the lawyers get an inpatient bed date. And then the lawyers get to argue, the prosecutor can object to their release, and sometimes we'll sustain their objection and not let them be released. But ultimately, if there's a plan and there's a way to hand them off, to let them leave jail to go to inpatient, we do that. And then there actually has to be a specific plan for that person, who's gonna pick them up and take them directly to inpatient. Sometimes our own transport officers will transport them to treatment. And so that but once they're there, there's nothing preventing them from walking out. And the incentive we give is we give what's called a reconciliation hearing. So there's extra jail left. And if they've completed that treatment, then they get credit for the jail. I just had one this morning that completed treatment and got credit for his jail time because of it. So we do use inpatient quite often, but it's, again, it can't be considered a panacea, because if you don't deal with the underlying mental health issues, the underlying stressors, then you're going to be right back to ground zero.
Gotcha, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Honda?
Well, thank you. On page 107 of the budget book, under non-general fund operating expenditure summary, there's traffic safety, and it goes down to, it looks like, I think I found that over in the police department budget. So is
What,
that,
is that photo enforcement money?
I don't know.
is that a big-
That's what
big
I'm
amount?
asking.
Well, we've got our two budget people. What page on?
It's page 107.
Because
and
photo enforcement money is supposed to be used for traffic safety.
It's a non-general fund operating expenditure summary, and I found the same amount over in the police budget somewhere.
Uh,
But
Mr.
it's
Broom?
leaving the court, so it's going somewhere else, or,
I think we're going to have to go research that. We can't think of what it is off the top of our
okay.
heads.
We'll find it.
What amount is it? Councilmember Brown?
61,550.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that might be. Photo enforcement is usually a larger number.
Steve?
I'm sorry, I was having trouble hearing.
Oh, 61,550.
Yeah. We'll have to.
Okay.
Yeah, I
look that up.
don't know.
But what you're looking at is in the municipal court budget?
Yep, under court,
What's that?
yeah, under courts, yeah.
Under court.
Yeah.
All
The
right,
re-
it's
the
at the
revenue
top
from
right.
photo enforcement doesn't show in the court's revenue.
Okay,
I see it's equal and offsetting revenue. No, that's expenses, isn't it? Yeah. We'll have to look it up.
thank you.
All right, council, any other questions? Your Honor, thank you so much for the work you
I
do.
appreciate it, appreciate it.
We
Thank you.
appreciate you.
Have a good one.
Yeah, thank you. Yep. Tell Judge Bales we said hello.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Okay, now, our police department, led by Chief Andy Wong. Got our two deputy chiefs here. I'll let you introduce your team, Chief.
Can't seem to find my PowerPoint presentation.
This is why Thomas is here. Here he is. I told you. There was a discussion earlier today about who's necessary for where they're all directors.
Yeah.
And then
Close.
I said, Thomas needs to be here.
And then we'll just close that out.
He'd be here anyway.
And please. I don't know what I'd do if I wasn't here, right?
Exactly.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Farrell, Council President Kochmar, Council. It's my pleasure to present the Police Department's 2025-26 proposed biennial budget. Before I get into the presentation, I'd like to introduce some of our key executive and command staff members. Seated closest to me is Deputy Chief Kyle Sumter. Deputy Chief Sumter is in charge of our Field Operations Division, and Deputy Chief Sumter has more than 34 years of law enforcement experience, and he is a founding member of this agency. He came here when we first started. Next, we have Deputy Chief Casey Jones, which you met a couple months earlier. He was promoted this year. Casey has more than 30 years of law enforcement experience, and he's also a founding member of this agency and worked patrol first day in October of 1996 when we started the agency. And then next to Casey is Diane Shines. She's our Civilian Operations Manager. She has over 30 years of experience doing records and supervising civilian staff. And she is member of our command staff. She's the highest ranking civilian person within our agency, and she oversees majority of our civilian staff within the police department. And she's been with us from the beginning. And then next we have Commander Kerry Murphy. He's in charge of our criminal investigation section. And Kerry also has more than 32 years of experience. And Kerry was the first employee that I supervised when we started the agency here. So we have,
You got over 100 years of experience. It's nuts.
yeah. So
Wow.
anyways, it's my pleasure to introduce them. And also, if there's questions that things come up operationally, I brought them as well. They could maybe give a better answer. So I brought them for that reason as well. Okay, so I will share with you our staffing and just our operation. So there'll be a little one slide on our overview of our agency. And then I'll share with you just some of our key accomplishments for 23 and 24. And in the budget document, there's a long list of things that we accomplished for those years, but I'm going to just share a handful this evening. And then I'll share with you our new program requests for the police department, what is funded, and then our new program requests that are unfunded, they're on the waiting list. I'll share those with you as well. And then some of our goals for 2025 and 26 for the police department. So here's our macro view of our police department. So the chief of police, executive management of the department. And then our department is broken up into two divisions. We have the Field Operations Division and Support Services Division. Field Operations Division, majority of our employees, our officers are uniformed personnel. We have about 120 signed to the Field Operations Division, and we have a total of 186 employees. So majority of our people work in field operations. And then we have our professional standards, administrative commander, Kyle Buchanan. Generally, the commander reports to the support services deputy chief, but two areas that the commander reports directly to me is one is professional standards, our internal investigations, and also for public relations and media contacts, he reports directly to me for that as well. And then we have our executive assistant, Deanna Patterson. And what's unique about our agency is, generally speaking, an agency our size, there'll be an administrative assistant signed to a deputy chief. Just generally, if you look at agencies in our surrounding area, that's how it's structured. But for us, we have Deanna Patterson, who reports to me, but she also serves the both deputy chiefs as well. So there's a lot of collaboration and work sharing that goes on between the four of us, as far as work that needs to occur in the office of the chief. And then our department staffing and operation. We're authorized 150 police officers. Our officer ratio is 1.49 officers per 1,000 population. I'm using the population of 101,000. Statewide, WASPIC report came out my memory serves me right, state average is 1.36 officers per 1,000 population. So we are above, in terms of allocation, we're above the state average. But when you look at the national average is 2.1 officers per 1,000 population. And Washington has the lowest ratio in terms of police officers to population. So we're 51st place. And then our civilian staffing, we have 36, and then that totals 186 FTEs. As you know, the police department is 24/7, 360-day operation. We work around the clock, and how we do it is we have 3 patrol shifts: day shift, swing shift, and graveyard, night shift. And there's some overlapping times and overlapping days. So those overlapping days is when we accomplish our training days for our officers. Our officers work, so patrol has 6 squads, 2 squads to day shift, 2 squads to swings, and 2 squads to night shift. And then our patrol division works 10-hour shifts. They work 4 days on and 3 days off. And most of our people like this schedule. Having 3 days off allows them to recover and then come back to work. We average around 75,000 calls for service, so we have about 205 calls for service per day. As I shared with you, we have 2 divisions, field ops and support services, and then our commanders. We have 5 commanders, and they have section responsibility. So one of the commanders has 2 sections, which is swing shift and night shift. So commanders have section responsibility, and then we have total of 17 work units. And that's where we have a supervisor, lieutenant, or a civilian supervisor supervising each of the work units that report to the commanders. Commanders report to the deputy chiefs, and the deputy chiefs report to the chief of police. That's our chain of command. So our key accomplishments for 23 and 24. At the top is our dual accreditation. We are accredited by Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agency, also by Washington State Sheriff and Police Chief Association. Just to give you how unique our accreditation is, we're one of 3 police departments in the state of Washington that has dual accreditation. There are more than 260 police departments. About 70 police departments are state accredited. And then of the 260 law enforcement agencies, 8 are CLIA accredited. So we decided back in 2022 to attain our state accreditation as well, so we have both. And that is really, we meet the highest standards. It doesn't mean we're perfect, but we aim for excellence. And it's really the engine that drives the Federal Way Police Department, because there's ongoing reports, audits that we analyze, and we have assessors and audits that occur to ensure that we're following best practices in the agency. It's a huge deal for reducing liability. Police work is high-risk, high-liability profession, and by being accredited, we reduce that risk. And we provide the highest level of training to our people. We fully implemented our body-worn camera program, so we're into this now about 3 years. We have a pretty good handle on this, and we're looking to advance our body-worn camera capability. So I'll share with you in a little bit. And also, we successfully transitioned to the Puget Sound Emergency Radio Network, PSERN. This is a huge deal because we had dead spots for police communication. You would go into the west end of our city. There were times that we didn't have communication at Decatur High School, so we had to put directional amplifiers there. And one time when the system broke, we had to put 2 officers there because there's no way we could communicate with our officers there. We had to do it by phone. So now we're not having any issues with dead spots in terms of police communication. So this new radio system has addressed it. But for years since we've been here, we've known dead spots. And it was a major officer safety risk when we went to calls. And then we implemented our major crime response team, MCERT. So we have an 8-team member that are highly trained. So if we have a homicide, fatality, this team will respond and process the crime scene. If we have an officer-involved shooting, they respond, process the crime scene for Valley Independent Investigation Team. So they're continuing to enhance their training and their skill, and as they respond more to these type of critical calls, they'll improve their skills. But we implemented a team that's working good for us. We upgraded with council approval. We upgraded our digital forensic lab room. We're able to access more phones and do more cases in-house. Just about every major crime involves cell phones, and we have more capability or better capability of solving crimes by accessing phones ourselves. And that was about a $150,000 enhancement to our capability. And then we maintain continuity and response time and proactive in responding to businesses and neighborhood problems. We receive ongoing compliments from our business community, particularly with our SOU unit when they assist. I constantly receive phone calls and emails about how thankful they are, how responsive we are. What I can tell you about Federal Way is if somebody calls 911 and they want to have a contact with an officer, we'll make that happen. Now, with technology changing, sometimes people want to file reports online and so forth, but if they say, I really want to talk to an officer, we still have the capability or the staffing to make contact with that citizen. One of the things we do is every month, all our supervisory staff with our crime analyst coordinator, we meet, we look at crime data and see where we're at. And then as a team, we'll make a focus. Hey, we have 2 hotspots. We have 2 problem areas. We know we have a known burglar working in this area. We make a concerted effort as a team to say, we're going to focus next month working on this issue or this problem. So everybody walks away, command level supervisory staff understands what our goal is for the month. So we meet every month, bring everybody together, and we're looking at crime data. We do that. And then one of the key things, remove illegal encampments, address quality of life for business owners and residents. We're really proud of what we accomplished as a city, working with code enforcement, public works. It's work in progress. Sometimes problems fluctuate. Hotspots might change. But bottom line is, we're not aware of any large encampments. When we learn of an encampment, we go to work to solve that problem and try to provide resources. We are way ahead of many other communities when it comes to this. And we've been doing it for years. And you can't fix this overnight. It's got to be a concerted effort. And that's what we have with Mayor Farrell, council, the city departments. We're all in concert. And we have challenges because Pack Highway, we have a very robust public transportation system. That's one of our strengths. Pack Highway brings lots of businesses, lots of people, but also brings some challenges in terms of policing. But I think we're doing a pretty darn good job. And then we started doing drug enforcement, shoplift emphasis operations. I think it's making a positive impact. The open-air drug usage is not as prevalent now because of the law change, because we are enforcing it, holding people accountable. And then maintained our registered sex offender verification program to enhance public safety. We have about roughly 150 registered sex offenders in our city, about a dozen level 3 folks that are most likely to reoffend. We visit them on a quarterly basis to ensure they're complying with the law for registration. Biannual for level 2 offenders, and then level 1 offenders, we try to visit with them once a year to make sure they're complying with the law. And then one of the things is our crime analyst and prevention specialist for community outreach, whether it's National Night Out, Coffee with a Cop. I think we've been doing a pretty darn good job, particularly after COVID, to re-engage with the community. And then one of the things we did is creation of the community engagement coordinator position. If you notice, if you follow our social media sites, we've been a lot more active to engage with that segment of our population that uses social media. So we've been doing a lot more postings, sharing what we're doing within the police department. We haven't changed anything. We're just sharing more of what we're doing within the agency. And then a partnership with the Mobile Crisis Response Team. These are King County mental health professionals. We have 3 mental health professionals that are working right out of our office at our police department. So they will, we give them referrals. If we're constantly dealing with someone, mental health issue, we could refer the mental health professionals to that individual, or they'll come to our scene after we render it safe, and they'll come out and assist us. So it's a good resource and partnership, regional resource. And then we've been working towards enhanced wellness program for our officers. And we have a mental health professional that's accessible to them, as well as our chaplain. And then expansion of our Safe City camera program to enhance public safety, license plate reader technology. With our Safe City program, we have 6 locations where we can read license plates. And then flock safety camera, we're looking to, we have a Westridge neighborhood. We're looking to put a flock camera system at 21st and 320th. And I'll tell you what, this is the future for law enforcement right now, is that we're solving cases, even though we don't have flock cameras in our city other than Westridge, we're solving cases by using flock cameras in other jurisdictions. So we'll have a violent crime, we'll have a vehicle description, general description of the vehicle. We'll enter that system because we have access to flock now. So we'll enter that system and the vehicle will pop up in a neighboring jurisdiction. Now we have the license plate. Now we have the vehicle. That's kind of what's been happening is this flock camera. So we like to enhance this system by putting flock in our city. We're going to be able to solve more crimes. So I'll talk maybe a little bit more about that, but flock camera system. And then mobile surveillance trailers. With council approval, we're up to 8 MSTs, and we're getting regular requests from the business community for placement. So we're now just moving them around here and there, so depending on where the needs are. And then we have 4 patrol vehicles with automated license plate reader technology, and they read thousands of license plates, and that's how we recover the stolen vehicles, where they're driving through apartment complexes or business community parking lots, and we're finding vehicles through ALPR technology. So we'll continue to use these technologies in the 25 and 26 as well. Okay, so new program requests. What's funded? First item, animal services, I'd like to share with you is that we have a contract with Pierce Humane Society. We had a contract through 2026, and we were paying $81,000 for that. So we thought we were good, but we were hearing words that the contract rate was significantly increasing with Pierce Humane Society for jurisdictions, particularly in Pierce County. But we thought we were okay. We got a letter a couple of months ago saying they were going to exercise their option to terminate our contract. And if we want to re-sign our contract with them, that it's going to cost additional, $205,000. So we're coming to you tonight, worst case scenario, to maintain our animal services, we need additional $205,000 for 25 and 26. However, we have a commander assigned now. We're talking with another humane society for a different contract, but we're not going to get anywhere near $81,000. It'll be higher, but probably less than what we're paying Pierce Humane Society, but we're negotiating contract now for a contract. So if we get an agreement, that will go through the mayor, obviously reviewed by law department, but it'll come to council for approval. But, okay, looks like you have a question, ma'am.
Will it be a no-kill shelter that you're going to try to find?
Yeah, my understanding is a no-kill facility, yes. Just like Pierce Humane Society.
So if the Humane Society of Pierce County is increasing their costs so much, what makes you think that we're going to find anything better than that?
It's not going to be, because they've given us like a ballpark. What's the range? So it's less than Pierce Humane Society, but it's going to be less, but it's not going to be anywhere near 81,000 ever again. But it's going to be less than what we're paying at Pierce Humane Society.
Will it be easily accessible for people whose pets go there so that they can find their way to pick them up?
It's about same driving distance.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Thank
not
you.
too far from here. So yeah, we don't have very many options, but
Right.
we have one humane society that's willing to talk with us and explore the possibility of bringing us on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and we have until end of this year. They gave us 180-day notice, so we got to figure something out by end of the year. But we want to budget it for the worst-case scenario. If nothing happens, we got to have somewhere for our residents to take the animals. And then Axon body-worn cameras and tasers. One, we're adding more officers, but we want to add additional features with body-worn camera technology, state-of-the-art technology. So we're going to pay a little more at the beginning, but we're looking at a 10-year contract. So long-term, it's going to bring us savings, but we're going to need additional $250,000 a year for 25 and 26 to continue the Axon body-worn program. One of the things we're doing is all our pursuit reviews, use of force reviews, any incidents, we're going to use Axon Standard for record keeping. And it's going to really help us to pull, if there's a particular incident, date, situation, we could put in the description, and it'll pull up any events of that. So it's going to really help us. And generating reports, it's going to be a lot more efficient using Axon technology. And I don't know when we're going to implement it, or we possibly might in the future, but there's tremendous advancements with Axon and report writing capability. So we might explore the possibility of potentially having report writing function through Axon. But I don't think we're anywhere near of implementation, but we want to, that may be in the future as well as those technology continues to improve. One agency who uses report writing feature, their report writing time was reduced by 66%.
Wow.
So what that means is that you'll have more officers on the street because you're spending less time writing reports. But the biggest courts will be the courts and prosecutor's office, whether they're willing to accept, generated reports through technology. So we're just at the beginning stages. I don't want to promise you we're going to absolutely do this, but we want to have the capability by having this contract to go to that technology when it's really available and useful.
Councilmember Duffy?
Yeah, I just have a question about, the Axon body-worn cameras. I think they were kind of one of the first ones to come out with the technology. And now, I read articles all the time in my business about the smartphones taking, competing with them, and different vendors coming out now that technology with AI and all that's starting to get going. And I think you just said a 10-year agreement, or maybe I misheard that.
Yes, we're looking at a 10-year agreement to be able to lock in a price, today's rate price. Yeah.
I don't know the policing piece of it, but it seems like with the technology changings in the wireless industry right now and what's going on, that might be a very long time to price ourselves out of some of the changes that are coming, potentially. I mean, I don't know that business at all. I just have a lot of acquaintances in it that are talking about all the new technologies they're coming out with, and I don't know, that might be a long commitment to someone.
Yeah, we'll take that into consideration, but I could tell you right now, Axon is, they really have the market. We don't.
Well,
really
they're the market leader,
yeah.
no doubt about it, but, a lot of people are the market leaders in the wireless world, and they're no longer in business.
Changes. Yeah, I think right now it's just the discount rate. If we go, the longer the contract, they're willing to lock in at today's rate and not, 7, 8 years. But I understand what you're saying as well. Things could change 4 years from now where, oh my gosh, we're locked in. Yeah.
Well, life with 5G when it hits here is going to be a lot different than it is with 4G and 3G and all the different things that people are doing. So, might be something to consider.
Okay, we might re-explore that as we develop this contract with them. The next item is jail cost. For 2023 and 24, we budgeted $2.5 million for jail budget. Right now, we're averaging about 55 ADP, that's acronym for average daily population. So it's costing us about $4.5 million. It's a big jump, but I also want to remind you that several years ago, we were paying $6.2 million, and our ADP was probably around 30. So we have contracts with 6 different jail facilities, and for long-term incarceration, we're using Yakima, Nisqually, but we're using SCORE, Kent, Issaquah. We have contract with Puyallup. We're using what we can, but I'm telling you that we're definitely getting a lot more ADP in terms of jail population. And right now, our officers have a lot of discretion. If they want to book somebody into jail and that's going to make our community safer, they have the autonomy to do that. But So, yes, it's definitely going up to $4.5 million, $2 million a year. And then Valley Communications, our jail budget, Valleycom budget is $3.3 million, but it's going up $150,000 each year. And then Public Records Coordinator, we have 2 positions, but we're asking for a third one, and we're at a critical point. Last year, we were averaging about 250 body-worn camera requests on a quarterly basis. Now we're up to 750. So what's happened is the technology's great, but everybody in the world's asking for them, whether it's the defense, the prosecutor's office uses them, and then just generally traffic accidents, insurance companies are asking for body-worn camera, and then you have the freelancer, everybody's asking for them. And each one of those public disclosure requests, somebody has to watch the entire video of every officer and redact what they need to. So it's not like releasing a police report or a written police report where you redact what you want and you got to watch the entire video. If there's 10 officers there on that scene, you got to watch all 10 videos of hour, 2 hours maybe. So we're swamped. So, but what we're asking is to assist with the budget, we're budgeting it at July. So that's half of the person's cost for 2025. And then we're asking for 1 lieutenant position. We've been adding officer positions, and we're also asking, we apply for 4 COPS grant officers, and we're waiting for Department of Justice to make a determination on those officer requests. But we're needing this lieutenant because we have our Special Investigations Unit, our Violent Crime Reduction Team. We're borrowing a lieutenant from a specialty to kind of oversee that unit, but we're looking to have a permanent supervisor for that. And also, when the light rail comes in 2026, this is where the 3 officers and lieutenant will come extremely handy, because we're going to have high visibility of police officers at the light rail station, and we're going to use the SIU team and SOU team combined. And what we envision is having an officer there, more than 1, but minimum 1 through day shift, swing shift hours. Constant police presence down there. So that's what we're asking for, 3 additional officers. And we're budgeting those 3 officers in July of 2026. So everything's been deferred to 2026. And then we'll need 4 new patrol vehicles, $77,000 per vehicle, fully equipped, and we're deferring that to 2026.
Chief,
Oh, I'm sorry.
back on the officers, how bad do we think it's going to be at the transit?
I don't think it's going to be bad. What's going to happen is we're going to have a lot of people coming into our city. And what we want is officer visibility presence where people come. They're going to just feel safer knowing there's officers on bicycles, on foot. And on the other hand, people who are coming in to potentially commit crimes, looking for victims, they're also going to know that, hey, the transit center, the light rail, there's a strong presence of police
Yeah.
visibility. It's going to deter crime.
Sure, so at 2 in the morning when it ends, it's going to be ending at our garage, is that correct?
Well, it is the last stop for now, so, but there'll also be, I should also say, there'll also be, security officers from Sound Transit. So there'll be 24/7 coverage, but I'm looking for police officers who have the authority
Sure.
to make an arrest.
Are we having any trouble getting officers, as far as bonuses or whatever?
It's better. We're definitely gaining, but we're competing with everyone. And right now, for lateral officers, there's some officers that hey, I can go here and get a $40,000 bonus. So there's a little bit of that going on. But on the other hand, we're definitely seeing more people applying, and just not us. It's just people are coming back to law enforcement. But last 2-3 years, there was mass exodus, last 3 years. So now we're building back up.
Thank you.
Councilor McDaniel?
I'll just wait till the end.
Okay, go ahead.
And then,
I have a question on
Oh.
the Sound Transit. Is Sound Transit compensating the city in any way for the additional security that we're going to have to pay for? Or that we're
No.
proposing we're paying for?
no, they're not.
Okay, and then, right now, how many officers are we short in our staff? I can't, it keeps going. You're recruiting a bunch, and they come up here, and then they go, and where are we at right now?
143, including the 9 that we've given conditional job offers. We're bringing 2 or 3 on. from that list. That's the goal, is to bring 2 or 3 per month to send to the academy. So in terms of people we've hired, people who want to hire, we're at 143, so we have 7 to go.
7 to go.
7 to go, but in terms of on payroll, we're at 134, something
Okay.
like that.
So we have 7 more to go, and we're proposing 4 additional, a lieutenant and 3 more. In reality, knowing how hard it is to get an officer, to retain officers, and to get them, are we gonna run into, like we have now, we don't have enough officers, and we're spending overtime to fill the slots, I mean, it seems like we're always chasing vacancies and never get ahead, so will we turn around in 2026 and say, oh, well, we still have these 3 that we've never been able to fill, and would we be better off to use the money for something else, maybe in the budget, because we can't get them? That's more of a,
Sure.
you know, a question out there. If we can't hire them, why are we budgeting for them if we think that problem's still going to be there?
We're definitely gaining. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's
Well, I
going to
know,
happen.
I'm
Right,
just.
but I think we're going
It's a
to,
hypothetical question.
yeah, we might have any given time 3 or 4 vacancies, because there's always lag time when somebody leaves an organization.
Mm-hmm.
But I clearly envision we're going to be pretty close to fully staffed on payroll.
Thank you.
Yep, it's looking good. And I'll also say that the latest contract, the council provided to the guild, and we're going to be, a well-paid police department. So I think that's definitely going to help us. And the word is that there's definitely a lot of support for officers at mayor's office and at the council. So that's what officers are hearing when they're coming in, is they want to come to a city where they're supported. And that's the reputation that we have right now. So I feel really good about where we're at.
I know at the last round of new officers, I said to one, you're fortunate you're here, it's safer here, and he said, I know.
Yep, for sure. And then vacation payout per contract, we're asking to $120,000 each year to pay for the vacation payout per contract. And then we're asking for $60,000 for each year for continuing to provide hiring bonuses. Particularly, it's really geared for lateral officers, just to be competitive in the market.
Councilor Honda?
Thank you. On the vacation payout, can you explain that to me? And so right now, what is our hiring bonus? Is it 60,000?
Okay, so for vacation payout, at the end of the year, around November, for example, the guild contract allows officers to cash out up to 40 hours, I believe. So every guild member has an opportunity, if they have enough vacation time in their bank, they can say, I want to cash out 40 hours of my vacation time. So that they get paid for that.
Can they not bank that and use it later?
They don't have to, it's optional.
Okay.
So generally speaking, it's department-wide, it's cost us about $120,000. Okay, but not every, some officers, yeah, they prefer to just save their time. They don't have to cash out. It's optional. And then for hiring bonus,
Chief,
yes.
Councilor
I was going to ask about the hiring bonus. Maybe you're going to go over it. I was just trying to, is that like for 3 officers a year, or how, you said 40,000 some people get paid, and I keep seeing ads at 20. I mean,
Yeah.
what's an average hiring
Lateral-
signing bonus these days for lateral?
Lateral officer is $30,000 hiring bonus, and they get paid for a period of a year and a half. So they don't get it all at once. They gotta be here 3 years, or they have to pay back. And then for entry-level officers, it's $5,000, and if they're not here for 3 years, they gotta pay it back. So what we do is we're asking just 60,000, but we have salary savings that we could use, and that's kind of, so we're not asking for the full amount what we need, we're just doing some to mitigate not having to use all of the salary savings.
So can you go through that again? So what is the hiring bonus right now?
30,000 for an experienced police officer.
And they get half when they sign on?
No, they get, I'm not absolutely certain, it's like $10,000, and then
Okay.
6 months later, it's every 6 months they get increment payments. But I believe the first payment might be $10,000.
So then after 2 years, they've got their $30,000.
Yeah,
If they leave at that point, they don't have to pay that back?
they have to pay back $30,000
If they leave within,
within 3 years.
3
They
years,
got to
okay.
fulfill the 3-year agreement, or the city
Okay,
goes after them for the 30,000.
okay.
So
Yeah.
generally speaking, nobody leaves within the 3 years, but we don't have a lot of people leaving for other agencies. We have some because it's the market. You know, people, and officers know it. Once they got 2, 3 years in of experience, unless they have baggage, they can go to any department they want, and they're highly sought after. And we get some laterals, but we lose some too because that's the market right now.
So you're not suggesting that we go up to 40,000 like other jurisdictions might?
No, I think we're fine. I think we're okay. And at some point, the market will change. When all the departments kind of fully staffed, maybe the economy changes, you know, we may not offer bonuses indefinitely, right? Just right now, we're just kind of staying par with what other agencies are doing. Because, for example, a neighboring jurisdiction in South King County is offering $40,000. Some are offering $25,000. We're in there, but it seems like a lot of money, but when you think about all the time that to train someone, academy, FTO, you're looking at a year's pay. So when you look at, for example, we got a lateral officer, she came here, she's on the road within like a month. She comes here, month and a half, she's on the road by herself. We didn't have to pay someone for all that training time. So 30,000 seems like a lot, but on the other hand, when you just, from a business point, it's not a bad option.
Mayor, do we have any other departments that we pay a hiring bonus to?
I'm not aware of any. No.
Just questioning. Okay,
No.
thank you.
You know, Chief, I think there's a lot to be said for administration having your back, because money is inconsequential when you feel that you're at risk. And I think it's very important for them to know that we're fully behind the officers.
Yep, it really does help. And it wasn't always like that, even here in Federal Way. So we're very thankful for your support, no doubt. Okay, so to the unfunded items, directed emphasis patrols, we're not asked, that's just on the waiting list. But on the other hand, if something critical happens, you know, the mayor's been really flexible to say, hey, just put the extra patrols. Let's say we have a rash of crime in a certain area, holiday time, I will just post additional overtime opportunities to have higher presence, like 21st and Southwest Campus, Fred Meyers. Holiday time, you just tend to have more, you know, vehicle prowls and people, criminals, you know, opportunists. So we have higher visibility, presence, and we've done that, and we've been able to absorb it through salary savings. So we'll put emphasis patrols. Flock safety cameras, 50,000 each year. We're just tabling that for now. We're asking from the state for assistance. Maybe there'll be a grant opportunity, but 50,000 will get us probably another couple of intersections each. You know, be able to add 2 more kind of flock intersections. We need additional training funds for with added officers. That's on waiting list. And here's an item, rifle-rated body armor. It's on hold, but it's $50,000 each year. And if there was, of any of the items were prioritized, that would be our number one. What's happening now is we have criminals carrying rifles now, rifle rounds. And with advancement of body armor, when officers wear the body armor and they're rifle-rated, you really can't tell the difference now. When you think of a rifle-rated ballistic vest, I mean, you think of the military where they're wearing those bulky things. It's not like that anymore. An officer on our SWAT team is wearing it, and I didn't know. And he shared with me, I'm wearing the rifle-rated ballistic shield, and I'm like, really? So that's where, so for our specialty units, we are using some seizure funds to get the rifle-rated plates for them now, front and back. But if there was anything, if there's free money that gets freed up, that would be our first choice. And then flock safety camera would be number 2. But getting 50,000 each year, we'll get rifle-rated plates for everyone. And then future purchases, we'll just spend a little more money and just get the rifle-rated for new people. But that's where we're at. We need about $100,000 for 2 years to get it for everyone right now.
Chief,
Yes, ma'am.
when my son became a police officer, the agency that he was working for bought him, you know, his vest. And he called us and he said, Mom, for my birthday, would you buy me a better vest than what my agency is providing?
Yeah.
And of course we did, because will do anything for him.
Sure, of course.
And I would do anything for our officers too. So if there's a better vest out there, I would like to see that as a priority for our officers. I don't know what that would cost, but I think it should be a priority. If there's the very best vest that exists, our officers should be having.
Yep, I really appreciate that, and you can all decide as a policy group, but I would tell you that we won't be the first to do it, because what I'm hearing now is more and more agencies, even in our region, are just providing these vests to their officers, because it's not these bulky things anymore. They just look like regular, like what I'm wearing. You wouldn't know. So they're just rated to stop rifle rounds. And the current vest I'm wearing, it would not stop a rifle round. They're just designed for pistols. So some of our officers are going to get these through our seizure funds, but that is one of the things we want to continue to look for opportunities to find money for.
I would support every officer having one.
Okay, thank you.
Just my opinion. Thank you.
And then,
Hold
right,
on,
oh, yes,
Councilor Duffy?
yes, sir.
I guess I have a question about these unfunded programs. Again, it goes back to how many officers we have versus how many we budget for. And again, we're still running at a deficit. I mean, in a cash flow world that I work in, if you don't have the bodies there, you have the money if it's budgeted. I mean, why couldn't you, if we were short 7 officers and, we're moving them along, why couldn't you use that cash flow to buy these things? Because you're not going to have the officers anyway until you catch up. So if you're budgeting X amount of money for the personnel and you don't have them, why can't you use them for the capital? Or
Yes,
maybe
we do use it. Steve?
Steve, did I ask a bad question?
No,
yeah,
no, no,
great
no.
question.
As you recall, we come to city council quarterly with budget amendments, and we generally sweep savings and find things. There's always something that we need to do, and so we don't have cash piling up. We always use it every quarter.
But I guess budget amendments, I get it, you come, but if you've authorized the budget of X millions of dollars to run your operation, and you can't have the people, and it's in there, why do you have, maybe I'm asking the wrong question, why do you have to have a budget amendment to say, this is what you need, spend it? Maybe it's more for tracking?
Well, our primary goal is to budget police officer positions that we do fill. We do expect to fill them. We budget them with the expectation that we're going to fill them. So we don't know that they're going to be vacant necessarily.
But,
And the money that's not used
Right.
is captured in other ways.
well, I know, but
Yeah.
it gets captured, it may go to Public Works, or it may go to Parks, but if you are down 2 officers for X amount of months, you could buy the training like that. It wouldn't cost anything, because you've already budgeted the money for the police department. I mean, maybe
And that's exactly why we have a wait list, so that we have it there, so we don't forget. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, the 750,000 for a man, a mobile man, that's like 7 officers not here for a year, but we don't want to see that. But the other stuff is like pocket change, rounding errors. If you don't have people there in your spots that you budgeted for.
Yeah.
Yeah, my only concern would be to spend that money, and then when we go to the higher last 3, 4 officers, we actually don't have, run out of money,
But
so, yeah.
I'm
Right.
maybe talking out of turn, but if you have a budget and you're supposed to manage it, you have to anticipate, well, it's gonna, anyway.
Yes.
If you don't get an officer for a year, you all of a sudden have $100,000 that was plus that was given to you that you didn't spend, unless it was overtime or something.
I hear what you're saying, so if it's a priority for council, we'll certainly make it happen.
Okay, fine.
Okay, then rifle sound suppressors. We have rifles. It's mainly, this suppressors are mainly for officer safety. When you actually do have a shooting and you have a rifle that goes out, I mean, you could literally go deaf. So at some point, if there's extra funding, that's something that we'd like to do. And mobile command post vehicle, it would be nice to have. I'm not pushing it really hard, because for the 4th of July, we borrow the Homeland Security vehicle. We have command vehicles for critical incidents, but city this size, we don't really have if the ground shook and there was emergency management, it would be good for somewhere for command or mayor, council to come and get briefed and something in the field. So someday we'd like to do that. Maybe there'll be a grant funding opportunity, but it is on the waiting list. It's been there for several years now. Okay, so our 25 and 26 agency goals. Provide for a safer community by positively impacting index and quality of life crimes. We want to do everything we possibly can to reduce crime and hold people accountable. That is really our mission. That is why police department exists. And then crime analyst information distribution, that will continue our monthly meetings, coordinated effort. If we have problem areas, we'll put extra officers. And then we want to increase uniform police presence downtown. We know with light rail coming in, we're going to need to change our structure a little bit and have higher visibility of officers. And then we want to continue to maintain our dual national state accreditation. That's something we should be really, really proud of as a city and as a community that we're accredited. Continue community engagement and building partnership with our community. Continue our illegal encampment initiative to address quality of life crimes. I'm hearing that some of our larger cities, 30% of their homicides come from unhoused and illegal encampments. So definitely keeping up with our initiative makes our community safer. And then professional development, leadership training opportunities for succession planning, that's been in the works. So like all our folks here are founding members. Some of us are way past our retirement age. Some are younger, so we have succession planning coming up for our agency. And then officer wellness and safety at every level is a priority for us. And then we want to expand our Safe City flock safety camera system because we're seeing it on a major investigations. The technologies are really helping us. And then continue our regional collaboration and partnership, whether it's drugs, auto theft, gangs, gun violence. And then traffic enforcement with focus on DUI, reducing speed, and distracted driving. And I can answer any questions you may have.
Councilor McDaniel.
Thank you. If you could go back to page 9, it would be the new program request funded. And then while you're doing that, I have a couple questions that are kind of budget related, so I'll probably be looking at Steve Grooms over there for this one. The budget doesn't include grants in the finance side of it, but you guys acquire quite a few grants throughout the year. Do you know what the average amount that you guys bring in for grants?
Well, I think the COPS grant is all expired, but generally speaking, the COPS grant is about $83,000 per officer per biennial budget. We get traffic safety grants, so generally about $12,000 in traffic safety grants. Registered sex offender program around $25,000, and then we have the JAG grant, which is about $36,000 a year. Those are the main ongoing grants that we receive. We just applied for a gun violence reduction grant for $150,000 with the Attorney General's office. We will be applying for that. And then we have the 4 COPS grant officer grant. And then we just received a $160-something thousand technology grant funding to reduce vehicle pursuits. So we'll be getting a lot more stop sticks, and we're getting Star Chase technology. So we got $160,000 grant. We'll start implementing that. So it's ongoing. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, it does to an extent. And then do those grants, are they restricted funds usually for the grants? They come with strings like, hey, this money has to go towards this particular aspect?
Yep, we apply for that. We got to use it for that. So like holiday time is when we're going to do a lot more DUI enforcement. Because one of the things I don't want to see is reduction of DUI arrests. So we'll use that traffic safety grant for that type of focus enforcement.
Gotcha. One of the other questions I'm going to have is I'm actually going to run through these just for the ones I have questions on. On animal services, it's $205. Is that $205,000? Is that an additional $205,000? And if so, what does that bring the total up for the animal service?
I was told it was 81,000, so another 205.
So it's
So
going
you're
to be, so we're talking 286,000 then?
Yep,
Okay.
yes.
And then out of curiosity, when I look at the budget and I'm looking at the animal department on 134, it looks like the actual licenses are going down and the tickets are going down. What exactly does that $286,000, what exactly is that for then?
That's really the housing of the animals at the Pierce Humane Society. So the services that they provide. So we may have quarterly, maybe 150, 200 animals that are taken to the Pierce Humane Society. I was just looking at our quarterly report today, anticipating maybe some questions of that. So sometimes our residents will find an animal, we'll take it down, or our animal service officer will, but that's really what we're paying for, is to house the animals there. The licensing is done in-house, and we do it here at the city.
Okay.
They don't do that for us.
I'd just be curious to know how many animals we get on that one. Is it Axon? I believe it's Axon. So the Axon cameras, what is the total amount for that per year then, if it's 250 increase? 'Cause a lot of the stuff gets jammed into the budget underneath of one line item.
Yeah, we were paying about 800,000 a year, so now it's gonna go up to about 1 million. Yeah.
And what is that 250,000 bias? I know you said there's some future features for it, or is this just a service upcharge they're doing now with the cost of increases?
Now, this $250,000 includes the report writing feature. Now, if that technology doesn't work, let's say the prosecutor's offices all say, we're just not gonna accept those reports. Just, if that occurs, we can deduct 134,000 from the contract. So that's how it's written up. So if we use that technology, that's included here. And then all our reporting features, like when we do a standards investigation, when we track pursuits, early warning system, every reporting system will be in Exxon. So we'll be eliminating, over time, we'll get rid of other web-based companies that are providing that service. We've decided that Exxon provides the best service, and we want to go with that
I
company.
assume that the storage is all included in this?
Everything, yep.
Okay.
We don't have to do anything here at the city.
Gotcha. And then for jail costs, when I see the 2 million, I just wanted to find out, make sure I'm looking at the right spot, is for Director Grooms, is it 138 underneath of the jail fund, 5XX intergovernmental? Is that where I'd be looking for the jail?
That's exactly right. $4.5 million is the amount that we pay to, for the jails themselves. And then you see the salaries and benefits for some of the staff time that is.
The employees that go back and forth? Yep,
Yeah.
gotcha. And then I noticed it's got 4.5 million, just the same amount for the next 3 years. Are we just estimating it to be about 4.5 then?
We're paying, yes, this year, we're looking at $4.5 million for our jail budget, and that's keeping us at around 55 ADP. So in discussion with our staff, if we keep our current operation, where officers have discretion for booking or not, sometimes things can change in the courts, and ADP can change. But right now, we're running at $4.5 million, and we believe that maintaining that should be in the ballpark.
And so, you said ADP. What was the number that you have for our average right now?
This year, 55. So
Okay, we had a meeting recently, and the number was given at like 30, because we just increased score to, I think, was it 25 or 30 beds to make sure we could lock it in?
that's
different?
just a score.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
That's,
that must be just a score, because, yeah, I've had my people run the numbers, and when you look at all the jails, we're running around 55,
okay, thank you.
average.
That confused me when I first heard that. I was like, whoa, that's a big difference. That makes sense then.
Yep.
So on Valley Communications, the 150,000, on page 132, we have, this year, 2024, we have 3.3 million, but then the next 2 years are 3.3 million too. Where does the 150 go into that 3.3 million?
Yeah, I knew, boy, you're really paying the details.
Oh, hell yeah.
But yes, this was, I talked to Director Groom about that, and bottom line is that was not updated on this document. But we need to add $150,000, and we were going to address that.
So it's 3.45?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Make that adjustment of mine. Public records, no problem with that. Okay, the officers and the 4 vehicles, do the 4 vehicles relate to the officers, or are these replacement vehicles?
We have to add 4 vehicles for the 4 officers that we're hiring.
Just want to
Yes.
check on that. I don't have any, they answered the vacation and the hiring bonuses, thank you guys. The last question I have is gonna be one of the comments you made about hiring these officers. The number one complaint we still have when I talk to people is the homeless, the drug addicts, the addiction, whatever terminology you want to use for the people just walking around the streets. You said we have 3 mental health people in the office. What is our current status, and how will these extra 3 police officers help with the situation that we have where people are literally, after 9 o'clock, no one goes out and buys stuff? I talked to quite a few restaurants, quite a few places. People just don't go out anymore. It's not safe, they feel. I talked to banks people. People don't want to get out to even get the money out of the bank. There's some very interesting things that are going down. Even the day center, if you've driven by that in the last 3 days, is a disaster with carts everywhere. How does bringing on these 3 officers help us with that compared to like trying to use more of the mental health officers out there with that populace? Because it sounds like mental health officers don't go out unless they're called out. And I'm trying to figure out how do we, as the police and the safety factor, how do we engage with those people to get them, either help or just moved along in their lives?
Yeah. So these 3 officers and lieutenant, how they're going to help us, it's really visioning. It's looking at the future. These officers aren't deployable now, but in the future, when light rail comes in, it'll give our commanders and lieutenants more capability. When you have more personnel or uniformed personnel, you have more options to deploy in different ways. So they're going to help. Definitely having these officers will be beneficial. And we're not even fully staffed yet. So once we get more increased staffing, right now we have higher staffing in our patrol operation than we've had in the last probably couple of years. So it's definitely looking better. In terms of how do we deal with what's happening in Federal Way, I think we're doing a pretty good job, but it's not just Federal Way. I mean, we are at an all-time high in terms of murder in this state. We've doubled from 2019 to 2023. We've doubled the murder rate. King County has become one of the most dangerous places in America. And these are because of policy decisions. And we have juveniles crime that's way, way up because there's very little to no accountability. And even with the drug crisis, it isn't a crime to be homeless or unhoused and be a drug addict walking around. But like I said, one of the challenges, the robust transportation. One of our strengths is Pack Highway, all the businesses, but also brings sometimes, the criminal element. So I'm telling you, I think we're doing a pretty good job as a city, but it's a bigger issue here because people don't feel safe. When you say that, it isn't just Federal Way. It's the course that we've taken in this state last 3-4 years with the anti-policing laws. Now, some of it's come back. Drug is a crime again. Police can pursue again. And 2-3 years from now, it's a gradual thing, but we had 836 fatalities in the state last year. 2 years from now, this number will go down just because the criminals aren't going to steal as many cars. They're not going to try to elude officers as much just because of the law. But it's not going to change overnight. But those numbers will go down. So I hope that answers your question. We have a hot spot. We're dealing with it. But I agree with you. I'm not going to have my wife and children walk down Pack Highway 9 p.m. at night.
Sales tax is kind of showing it too. So that's why my concern is that the police officers, are great for certain things. I think the issue we're having right now, police officers might not be the right fit in that particular item because a lot of the stuff, like you said, they're not doing crimes, but what they are doing, questionable crimes. I've got carts. I've seen people smoking fentanyl this week multiple times. We got people sleeping on the streets. These are ordinances I thought that were passed that were supposed to eliminate that. So I'm just concerned that the extra officers may not be the right touch to it, but I guess we'll determine that.
I don't think it's going to eliminate it. I mean, as long as I've been here, when I first got in this city, drug was an issue because we're going through this drug crisis worse than what we went through in the
I agree.
Early 90s. But crack cocaine, we had prostitution issues. Pack Highways always brought certain level of crime element, but we are really proactive about what are the hot spots. Lately, Pack and 312, I was getting complaints from residents. A concerted effort by our teams to, hey, I want this area cleaned up, and we're going to do an operation here soon. It's in the works. So we're constantly working. Even 13th Avenue, you won't see cars parked on 13th Avenue very often because we are issuing tickets. So we're mitigating it, but I don't know that we're going to completely, when they say, hey, I saw a homeless person, it shouldn't be happening. We can't eliminate all aspects, but it's a work in progress.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And last question I have is safe camera. Are we allowed to use those in court cases, or are they strictly for just checking in on accidents and stuff like that?
No, we could use them.
Okay.
They're used most often for traffic collisions. When there's an accident, we get a PDA for the traffic collisions, but we've used our Safe City camera to track, individuals who've committed crimes or vehicles, but this flock in LPR technology is really helping
But
our
I
region.
need to clarify, but that's different in part from red light photo enforcement. red light photo enforcement are not necessarily affected. I think there's a
Complete.
statute that you can't use red light photo enforcement for criminal enforcement. That's a state law.
Okay, that-
But
for
we
that.
have cameras on top of that, hundreds of cameras throughout the city, which are, downtown and throughout the city, which are safe city cameras.
Gotcha. And then the last question I have is on the MSTs. How many do we have? 8, I believe?
Eight total.
How many of them actually out in service right now?
Last time I checked, I think maybe 6,
Okay.
5 or 6, and then some
a
are
couple
down, just
down.
maintenance. Yeah, they're broke, or we broke something on it or something like that.
Okay. That's all I got for now. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Councilmember Honda?
Thank you. On the flock cameras, probably maybe 2 years ago, or maybe like a year ago, I was watching a city council meeting in Des Moines, and they were just getting flock cameras, so it might have been 2 years ago. And they were talking about how Kent had these flock cameras, and they wished Federal Way would. And so I asked someone here at the city if we could get flock cameras, and was told no, that our safe city cameras were doing a better job than flock cameras. So what's changed from when I initially asked that to why are we getting flock cameras now?
And I remember that. We are so invested in our Safe City camera program, because we started the Safe City program long before other communities were doing this video surveillance technology or license plate reading capability. So right now, through Safe City technology, we have 6 LPR systems, and we don't disclose where they're at by design. So back then, we had so much infrastructure into that system, we were reluctant to just completely make a shift. So what I'm telling you is, we still don't have flock. But I would tell you that I'm at a point now that I want to pilot it. We want to pilot this because what's happening now is we're using flock technology in other communities to solve our crimes here, because when they leave Federal Way, they don't just stay in Federal Way, they'll end up in Kent, Auburn, and now we're using flock from there. So we want to at least we're asking for a pilot. So it's going to cost us $12,000 to do one intersection, and we still haven't got it up and running. We're working with our city departments, flock, trying to get one going. Once we get one going, then, okay, what other funding can we pull? Do we use Safe City money that we might get as a grant, use that towards flock? But there is ongoing cost. So it is a policy decision that we need to invest in. But I'm at a point now that, yes, we need to be a regional partner, and criminals from Kent are going to flee into Federal Way. So I'm at a point now that we should invest some, but we're not going to abandon Safe City cameras system, but we should invest some into flock. So yes, technology has evolved, and we're at a point now that we should expand.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And you're asking for another public records person?
Yes.
So, I just checked in the city clerk's office. I know that has been a request in the past to have another public works, public records person. So if you have 3, and I believe city clerk has 1, I don't know if it's a full-time person, would the 3rd person in the police department help other departments in the city with public records requests?
I would say no, but all our record specialists, they're part of the public records. They do public records work too, but I'm telling you, the volume that we're getting in the police department, and by far, we have a lot more PDA requests in the PD than any other department. I don't know the exact numbers, but I don't have any problem loaning or helping, but I'm just telling you, going from, and I only see body-worn camera requests going up. So this 3rd person is only going to do body-worn camera stuff, the watching the video and doing that. Right now, we're just barely staying afloat. We went from 250 quarterly to 750, and I anticipate it's going to continue to grow.
Okay.
So I hope that answers. We can help if help is really needed. We need to shift. Sure, we're a team. We want to be a team player, but on the other hand, we're just alone. We get so many PDA requests. We're at a point where I don't think we can sustain.
Okay. On page 134 in the budget book, under performance measures, it says, let's see. number of orders of protection processed, and in 2024, you have 1,436. And then under outcome measures, it says number of orders of protection served, 234. Are those related? So if you had 1,436 processed, but you served 234?
I think when you say served, it's literally served to a person. So we may process that many, and then the officers go out and try to serve it. So it looks like we're, maybe serving 20% of the time. Sometimes they're hard to find, and we're unable to serve it, but usually we'll try three attempts to serve the order.
So if a person gets a protection order, it's not
always served,
always served.
yeah.
And then what happens if that person who has a protection order against someone, and that the person who's not supposed to be around them comes to them and, let's say, hurts them or something?
We'll
If
rest-
they're not served, does that mean that,
We can't arrest them for violating the protection order, but we'll arrest them for a different crime. In this case, sounds like an assault. If an assault occurs, we'll arrest them for that. And then certainly they're going to get served at that point, if
And
it's
these
still
are-
active.
These are civil, these are, what they call civil protection orders, or domestic violence protection orders, that the temporaries are usually done without the presence of the victim. The permanent ones that are done, normally the hearing that occurs within 14 days for a protection order is done 2 weeks later. The suspect or the respondent is supposed to be there. If that person's not there, then they do need to get served. You've got criminal no-contact orders. Those are usually served in court, whether in custody. But yeah,
Who wants to come up?
obviously, they would be prosecuted for the.
Diane, you want to come up and explain that?
it seemed like a big difference.
Diane, why don't you come on up?
Yeah.
I may have misspoke, so I'm going to have
Okay.
Civilian Operations Manager explain exactly, answer those questions. Here's these numbers.
Okay, so when we're talking about the number of orders processed, that's all, in its entirety. So our record staff who are receiving orders to enter into the system, enter into our records management system. And then from those that require service, those orders where the respondent lives in Federal Way, then those orders are given to the officers to go out and serve, and they make 3 attempts to serve the order. If they're successful, it comes back, we update, process that record, and update the records, update WASIC, NCIC.
But would some of those orders you're talking about would be criminal no-contact orders?
They are-
that you need to get into the system?
Correct.
There's pre-trial
There's-
no-contact orders, and then if it turns into a conviction, then they have to issue a new no-contact order post-sentence. And then, so those are almost always done in court. So that's probably why you've got.
So we're processing, our record staff is processing a temporary order that comes in from the court, and then eventually the permanent order will come in. So we're touching it like twice, and maybe 3 times. And
But
then, of
there's-
course, there are orders that come from outside the city that we're processing as well in order to get ready to serve.
It just seemed like a big difference, that's all.
But there's so many different types of orders, it's kind of confusing. Because you've got anti-harassment orders, which are 2 people that are not related by either, they're not part of a domestic violence or they're not dating or married or related, so they're not DV. So then that's one type. Then you've got no contact orders that are part of a divorce, part of a criminal proceeding, and then what you're getting at, which is the protection order piece, which is a sliver of all those. So it can get a little kind of confusing. They consolidated a lot of these orders under RCW 2650 to make it somewhat more streamlined, but there's multiple different types of orders. The one that really requires the service is the civil protection orders. And that's where the service is, you have to complete the service or perfect it.
Okay. I may want to talk to you
Diane, did I get all
privately
that
about
right?
that. And then my,
Generally? Okay, thank you. All right.
you.
It's been a few years.
That was the lawyer version. Thank you.
Exactly.
and then my last question for now, and I know others have questions, is in Federal Way, the council approved every officer having a take-home car.
Yes.
So I've asked you this question before, if every officer has a take-home car, But I've had officers tell me that that is not the case, that not every officer who wants one has one. Has that improved in the last 6, 7 months, where every officer who wants a take-home car has one?
By contract, we need to provide them with a vehicle. Now, if we don't do that, I'm going to get a grievance from the labor groups, and I haven't heard from them. So
Okay.
there may be some lag time. If they don't, everybody who's going through the academy and stuff doesn't get a car. Everybody, you know, it's, when you're assigned patrol operation, my understanding is everybody has one, but I don't know, maybe there could be one or two that are not, but I'm going to let the deputy chief speak. Are you aware of any officers who don't have a car that's?
No, but another complicating factor is we don't have a plethora of additional cars. And you may be aware in the news, when you hear a Federal police car gets crashed and is taken out of service, there's an officer who doesn't just go out to the parking lot and jump into a brand new one and drive off in it. So there's an example of an officer who temporarily is without a car until we can get one backfilled. And then, of course, the brand new officers, before they are, while they're in the academy, while they're on FTO, they don't have a take-home car of their own yet. So there's a group of officers that could say, I don't have a car. You're right, you don't. You're riding with somebody who does have a car right now. So I can see where there is
Okay.
some room for that.
I wanted to clear that up because I've heard it more than once. So there's a time period at which an officer who's employed by us does not have a car, but they're working towards getting one.
That is correct.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, and they don't actually need one at that point, because they're still in training, and they're being trained by a field training officer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Council President?
So, Chief, City of Seattle just passed 2 ordinances, or trying to pass 2 ordinances, for one called soap and one called soda. So a soap ordinance, we've had that here, stay out of area prostitution, when probably about 20 years ago, we had ladies of the night walking up and down Pack Highway. And then, once we passed the soap ordinance, they started walking up and down Pack Highway only up to 272nd, and then retreated back to the north. So, and then that stopped because everything then went online. So my question really to you is, would a soda ordinance help stay out of area drug, especially around the day center, passing an ordinance?
I don't think it would hurt, but I don't think it's really needed as well. I mean, we know where the hot spots are, and we're hitting it, and I think we've mitigated the problem, and it gets shifted here and there, but I think it's work in progress. I definitely think it's improved, because I drive around the city regularly, and it's going to be a work in progress, because sometimes new people come into our town, and they may not know, and whether they're pushing a shopping cart or something like that, and we can't be there all the time. We can't continue to do emphasis every day, but I think we're making progress.
Okay, thank
I
you.
don't think the ordinances are needed in federal way, just because our enforcement efforts are occurring.
I have a couple questions, and more for clarification. When I look at the jail cost, and the numbers, it is going up because we're incarcerating more people and more people are doing things, but shouldn't we be looking at jail costs and adding the cost of the debt service we have on SCORE to get the true cost of jail cost? I mean, I know it's a capital project where we invested into SCORE, but we're paying that, and then our jail costs have gone up, or are gonna go up. So the true cost of jail is not just the cost to rent space from Issaquah and Kent and SCORE, but it's also the debt service we have. Steve, does that make sense?
The debt service is considered a facility cost because it was to construct a facility in which we pay out a real estate excise tax. We pay that out of REITs.
But
I mean, you're right, we could consider that part of jail.
It is a facility cost, I understand that, but it's still a carryover jail cost from, because I was on the group when we did that. It would seem to me that it should be factored into our budget what the true jail cost is, because we have that building we're paying the debt for that we're not a partner anymore, or whatever it is, but that should be, seem to me, it should be really part of the jail cost.
I gotta put it somewhere, I stick it in the debt page, and we can find it, and we could add it. It's
I mean,
there.
I'm just bringing that up
Yeah.
as a discussion point, not,
Sure,
sa-
if you wanted to add
I'm
it,
not
you-
saying good or bad, it just, when you look at jail costs, it's really, I think it's more than what it really shows here on the monthly costs. It's
Yeah.
that capital part that we have in there.
Right.
The other question I had, and, you know, in your presentation, you talk about homeless camps and done an amazing job cleaning them up, in my opinion. But, you know, we've had people come here on the day center recently, more than recently, quite a bit. So I've been driving by there kind of randomly. And, you know, at 10 o'clock at night, there's a couple vans there with people in them and a couple guys sleeping. And it's not regular, but is that considered a homeless camp after their hours, that if we had a police officer just park their car across the street, maybe other people would leave? I mean, it's amazing when you drive by, because I never have until recently, at random times, it seems like people are living there. And maybe they're not, but maybe they leave at 11 o'clock at night and go somewhere else. But I think they're actually, my take is a bunch of people live there and it's almost a homeless camp after hours. Anyway.
Yeah, it's a challenge because during the day, it's open and that's where they get their services. They don't want to go far. If
Well,
it
where are
was
they
up
gonna
to
go?
them, they
Yeah.
would just park on the street and live right there.
Yeah.
I know even on 10th Place South, there's vehicles, I mean, they're all around because they know that once it opens up, that's where they're going to go. So that's where they get their services, so.
Yeah.
But we are, trying to mitigate it by saying, hey, you can't park on 13th. We have no parking signs. We're keeping that street clean for the businesses. But yes, it's going to be an ongoing challenge because that's where people get their mail and that's where they get their meal and they don't want to go very far.
Okay. And my last question has to do with officers' cars. It appears to me that, of course, you wouldn't have a car if you're going through the academy and all those different things until you get here, but I think I heard we don't have spare cars.
We don't have a parking lot full of them.
Oh,
But, right, we don't want a huge inventory.
No,
We
but-
don't want our money tied up in car
Well,
inventory out there.
Well, I get that, but if you've hired the officers, and maybe I misunderstood it, it would seem like we'd need more cars than what's in our budget to meet the contract with potentially the union that says you get a car when you become an officer, and are we on base with that, or are we behind, or are we just kind of catch as catch can?
Go ahead.
There's also, we are also at the mercy of the manufacturer.
I get that.
And in many cases, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, we are ordering as many cars as we will need.
Okay.
And then we're at the mercy of what cars show up. And so it is a constant juggling game to try to make sure we have a car for everybody. And then there's the variable of crashing a car, which we didn't anticipate. Now we have an officer without a car. We have a small pool of extra cars to accommodate the contingencies, but we don't have a large parking lot waiting for officers to step into by any means.
So it's not a huge problem right now, but it could be if you were fully staffed.
If we don't get the cars in, then we're going to be doubling up or
Hot seating.
finding some other way, yes.
Okay.
But as we hire them, we order the cars.
Yes,
Okay.
we do. And whether the cars get here in time for the officer is one of those manufacturing and supply chain problems that everybody has been dealing with,
But if we hire them if we order them when we hire them, and we know we're going to anticipating hiring them, wouldn't we want to, of course, the budget makes the decision, but
Right.
shouldn't we be ordering them
way in advance?
way in advance?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Thank you. You do that now?
We do. We order way in advance.
So if we-
Sometimes it takes 2 years for the cars to show up.
So if we pass this budget as it is here with the lieutenant and 3 new officers, you would immediately order the cars in a perfect set?
Right.
We won't pay until the time comes, but we'll order ahead of time.
Till the cars get
Well,
here is
but-
when we would pay you.
Paying and ordering, to me, is the same thing. I mean, it's in the budget, why wouldn't you pay for them? Okay, got it.
There's a lot of creativity. They also hang on to cars a little bit longer and don't dispose of them in another effort. They've got a few levers they can push. It's an art, just like Deputy Chief said.
Our quartermaster does a good job. She keeps certain spare cars, secondary vehicles, for incidences where officers might crash their car and and we don't want to reward them with a brand-new car when they crash or something. We give them a car.
Car was due to be rotated out, but we've crashed one unexpectedly. A tertiary car becomes an online in-service car. So that kind of shell gaming is happening all the time to keep everybody into a car.
Okay. Councilor McDaniel.
The jail costs, does this number that we're looking at, does that include the mental and the medical costs that are being associated? Because I noticed that was a big piece of the vouchers. Is it possible if you can later, I'd like to be able to see what our actual cost was over the year or two, just to see how much that's going up for medical and.
Sure, we
mental
could
and
give you a spreadsheet of how much it costs for different care. Is that
I'm
what
just,
you're
look, I'm
looking?
just, like, we get the vouchers at the end of the year, at the end of the month, and they'll have broken out, jail cost, and lower on it will say, medical, and then lower on it'll say mental health, but they all go back to police. So it'd be nice to know what the actual cost is, if it's like a large increase in mental health cost, or if it's just been a small increase over a while.
We'll take care of it. Yep, we'll provide you some sort of report from our
Appreciate
jail coordinator.
Thank you.
Councilor Honda.
Thank you. So with the additional officers that have been hired and will be hired, I was wondering if maybe Pack Highway should be its own sector. I know we did that once with overtime monies for a few months.
You're asking for like emphasis patrols?
Not, well, just having, you have the sector 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, 4 sectors.
Would it make sense for Pack Highway to be its very own sector and have officers just assigned to Pack Highway like we did that one summer where we spent, I think, $1 million in overtime to do that?
I don't think creating its own sector would be beneficial because based on calls for service and the city's divided into 4 sectors, but we could certainly have additional officers, just highway emphasis patrol. We've had those officers before, where their sole function is to drive from 272nd to, the city limits at 376 and do problem policing, solve issues.
I mean, I hear so often from you that Pack Highway is a problem, so.
Yep, and that's where majority of our officers spend their time too, is on Pack Highway and main arterial streets. Because that's where our calls for services are, that's where accidents occur. That's where the people are. Over the years, I'm telling you, as far as neighborhoods, I would say neighborhoods are very safe. I mean, home break-ins are all-time low. And those are the things most people are concerned about, their home break-ins. I couldn't have dreamt up lower numbers than what we're experiencing now.
Yeah, my neighbor probably wouldn't agree with you, but,
I understand. If you get home, yeah, it's a totally different story, but.
thank you.
Yeah, okay, great. Okay, I don't see any more. Chief, were you done?
Well, yes, sir, I'm done.
Council, do we have, what's that? Well, there's some great questions, you guys. And we will do I like the question about the Pacific Highway being its own sector, because what you want to be able to do is have people be as responsive, as quick as possible. And, you have that overlap. The chief and I will talk about sort of that the deployment and where it's necessary. Remember, we had a series of, first, a couple of years ago, we had that spate of robberies at convenience stores, the 7-Elevens, along First Avenue. And that was and then we had to do an emphasis there, and we utilized some other things. But then I think, the council authorized up to $1 million for Pack Highway. So as it's deemed needed. Do you remember what time of the year it was where we had to do that? Was it summertime for that? Let me ask you this, in regard to that, have we had that in regard to Pacific Highway? Have we had that kind of high impact? I know that we had, some of those motels were really out of control. One of those had closed. We actually just recently had a shooting at one of those just yesterday, at one of the New Horizon, I think it was. So how are we doing on the Pacific Highway corridor? And do you think that there's a need to do the high impact?
We're doing that now with our violent crime reduction team, SIU. When they're doing emphasis, they're hitting some of the hotels and the drug dealing. And, some of those I report up. And our SOUs doing every morning. I mean, some of them come in at 4 a.m., start hitting the businesses and address trespassers. So there's emphasis patrol going on right now. It's not one time and you solve the problem, you're done. I mean, it's ongoing.
Okay.
But we're not a community, we're just allowing people to sleep, camp anywhere they want.
Right.
Because it's going to impact businesses. We don't allow that.
And Chief, you have, I've talked with, you and the city administrator and the CD director about the day center And there's been a lot of emphasis, I just want the council to know, there's been a great deal of emphasis and recent contact. Just like you, council member, I drove by a lot frequently. And I came back and the chief and I spoke, and I talked to Keith and said, this is unacceptable. So we're taking a very close eye on it. Okay, council, any other questions for the chief and his team? Council member?
I do have other questions, but I think that they're pretty specific. I can email Steve, or should I email the chief also?
Yeah, actually, I would do both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you, chief. Great job, everybody. Really, we're very proud and appreciative of the work you do.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we have Public Works Department, the Deputy Director, Desiree Winkler. You want me to ask?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council President Kochmar, members of council. I'm Desiree Winkler, Deputy Public Works Director. I am pleased to present the 25-26 proposed budget for Public Works. So how we're going to do this is we'll give you a department overview, and then we'll go over each of the different various funds. Streets Fund, Solid Waste Recycling, Surface Water Management, Fleet and Equipment and Maintenance Fund, Non-Police, Capital Program, and then talk a little bit about our department's challenges and opportunities. So our department is organized under various divisions, under Director Walsh. We have a special little tiny division called Sound Transit, who is Kent Smith, our liaison, myself, administrative support. And then our divisions are divided up into engineering, that provides support mostly for our capital programs, whether that be mostly public works, but we also support parks programs. Traffic division, fleet equipment and management, operations division, development services, and environmental services, which covers both surface water management and solid waste. And our department is pretty diverse. We have 72 full-time employees right now. We range from engineers to equipment operators to scientists to inspectors. And we all take public safety very seriously. I know that public safety is first considered as someone who's wearing a badge, but our job is to protect and enhance our natural resources and built environment. So whether we're responding to a sewer spill that actually happened over the weekend, over off the 348th, building new safety projects, or applying brine before an ice event, my staff is very much dedicated and take ownership of public safety. So we have our Streets Fund, which covers street division, traffic division, development services, and then our special revenue or enterprise funds, which is solid waste and recycling, surface water management, fleet and equipment, and capital programs, both transportation and surface water. So there were a lot of key accomplishments, and that's a lot of really tiny writing. We've been very busy the last couple of years, doing a lot of capital improvement projects. We got the Southwest King County Trail Plan developed and adopted. Development standards were updated this past year. Fleet purchased 23 vehicles, but hold your hats because that's nothing over what's going to happen the next couple of years. Probably one of our proudest and biggest accomplishments is getting the Joint Operation and Maintenance Facility to construction, which required a lot of purchases of property. We've done a lot of multiple recycling and reuse events, which has been increasing over the past couple of years. since COVID. So there's been a lot of things that we've done, and this is just literally the tip of the iceberg. Busy getting grants, so grants awarded for transportation, over $40 million. The primary bulk of that is $30 million from the state to advance the City Center Access Project, to complete environmental studies, as well as design and right-of-way acquisition for Phase 1, which would be the southbound ramps at 324th. We also got, over the last couple of years, over $500,000 in solid waste and recycling grants, which are used for education outreach as well as litter control. What we're looking at for 25-26 is continuing our larger asphalt overlay programs, since we've gotten the additional funding through the solid waste excise tax. Finally getting adaptive traffic control system going, all three of the first phases. Construction, multiple transportation surface water projects, and completing the construction of the joint operation and maintenance facility. What we would like to do and improve upon in the next 2 years is to continue to expand our public outreach and engagement, whether that be with our solid waste and recycling programs, to making sure that people are informed of our projects and have an opportunity to be involved in how those get developed. We'll continue to develop efficiencies, optimizing the use of city resources, continue City Center Access preliminary work, and working with Sound Transit on permitting and getting construction of let's get Federal Way Link Extension done first, but moving ahead with the operation maintenance facility and Tacoma Dome Link Extension. So our streets fund, that's the 101 fund, covers several divisions: our traffic division, our operations maintenance division, development services, and engineering. So the key for our overall public works budget is that there's not a whole lot of new programs going on. Really, the only increase that we're looking at for the 101 fund is to cover things like increase in electricity and water costs, as well as King County Road Services. So we use King County Road Services under an interlocal agreement to do our maintenance for our traffic signals, striping, and signage. And they have a little bit of an increase each year that we need to pay or drop level of service. And so this is truly all that we're looking at for increases in the 101 fund. As far as challenges, though, the increase in the number of service requests is everything from garbage requests to number of right-of-way permits. We'd like to see more resources dedicated to litter removal, and I'll get to that. Overlay funding, although we have more funding, we're barely keeping up and still falling behind. We're still down by about $5 million a year in keeping that going. We continue to have wire theft issues on our street light and traffic signal system. Increased cost of materials, maintenance contracts just makes it so we just can't get as much done. And if we can't increase how much we're outputting, level of service is just dropping. We have a lot of unfunded state and federal mandates, including ADA, safety management, the traffic control devices. There's changes to those, whether it be a few years ago where we had to add one-way signs to everywhere we had a median, those type of things. And we just feel the pressure. The state's not keeping up on their interstates, so the traffic comes into the roadways, and we're feeling that pain. So solid waste and recycling, that is one of our funds that has dedicated revenue source. And how we get the revenue for our administrative tasks is it's a 3.2% on gross receipts. So their collection has gone up, which has given us additional funds, which gives us an opportunity to address one of our biggest issues and biggest requests is litter pickup. So our proposal for a new program this year is utilizing those proceeds to hire 2 additional clear staff, and that's our own acronym for clearing litter from the right-of-way. We call them the Clear Crew. And then adding the truck needed, one-time cost for that. It's definitely one of our biggest challenges, but again, opportunity with funding that's coming in into this program. Surface Water Management Enterprise Fund, again, dedicated funding source to address those issues and requirements of our National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit. We just received our new permit in 2023. We were aware of what the new requirements were going to be, and so you'll see new programs that are related to that. This fund covers education and outreach, water quality, and of course our operations division, and also funds capital improvements related to the surface water management system. So the new budget items that we are proposing is all related to keeping up with the requirements of our NPDES permit. We have less than ideal obsolete asset management system that we have been analyzing the last couple of years, the new program that we would like to get and is actually compatible with C-Click Fix. So it'll help tie those 2 programs together. So there's a one-time cost to get the program going and get all our assets inputted into it. There's annual software fees related to it. The new program that we could pick what we wanted to add, but we chose that we would add a new ditching program. And there's some one-time costs required to purchase the equipment necessary, and that's actually residing in the fleet budget. But it's paid for out of these surface water management funds. And then we propose to bring in 3 staff to stand up this new program. So although it has its own program, there's still a lot of challenges in keeping up with this. The NPDES permit continues to add more things that we need to do. There's a lot of new facilities that get added. Every time that there's a new development added, they're adding infrastructure, they're adding storm drainage that we have to maintain. And everything is just increasing in terms of costs. We try to manage a lot of our maintenance in the summertime when it's dry, but it has been a real challenge to try to hire seasonal employees to get this done. Fleet Equipment and Maintenance Fund. Hold on to your hats, but there's going to be over 50 pieces of equipment between parks, streets, surface water management, and then general pool vehicles that need to be replaced in the next 2 years. It's a long, extensive list. I'm happy to answer any specific questions about pieces of equipment. But in general, there's actually a lot more equipment that needs to be replaced. We just don't have the funds. And one of the challenges we have is that, we make choices, as you heard earlier from the police chief or deputy chief, about holding on to vehicles that should have been surplused. That's one choice that we make. They no longer collect reserves. Or we hold on to vehicles and equipment longer than its original depreciation. So, for example, let's say we purchased a backhoe and it has a depreciation of us keeping it for 10 years. But it's running okay. We're a little short on funds one budget year. We kick it down the road. We don't replace it for 14 years. The problem is there's no additional funds for that. And the cost of the backhoe just went up by, 4 years of inflation. So we're moving ahead. We're doing the best we can. But we just need to make sure that one of those items that we don't necessarily stay on top of is paying into the reserves for our fleet. So anyways, happy to answer any questions. There are a few vehicles that are planned to go to surplus. Probably those vehicles have been held on to a little too long, that have no replacement right now. Again, there's budget constraints. We are kicking some of the vehicles down the road that are due to be replaced, but we're not going to. Supply chain issues, again, as Chief alluded to, we can order them, but they don't necessarily show up on time. And we've tried to be creative in doing some like rental equipment and stuff, and it's been a challenge. It's not necessarily available. There's even the rental companies that don't even want to rent anymore because they're concerned about who's operating it and the insurance related to if there's any damage done. So our capital program covers the overlay program. There's two overlay funds. There's the arterial 102 fund, and then there's the 116 fund, which is our residential overlay fund, which is funded by the 10% solid waste excise tax. And that'll continue to be robust and consistent over the next budget cycle and beyond. There is a whole list of transportation capital projects. Some of the highlights include, in the next couple of years, getting built that roundabout at 99 and 373rd, where we've received a grant. A lot of safety concerns there. And obviously, the Joint Operation Maintenance Facility is included in the capital program under the transportation program, because we had to park it in somewhere. And so this is where it's parked. That's why some of the costs over the last year and the next coming years look so large, because it's such a large capital project that is on the list. But that'll be accomplished as well. More transportation capital projects, and then also a robust list of surface water management program projects, including replacing the culvert at Redondo Creek, and then developing the trail system in our West High Lobos conservation properties is a project that we'll be pursuing the next couple of years. So future challenges is that it's just costs keep going up. And it's always making and trying to find what the priorities are and how we're going to be able to keep up with operation maintenance. Fuel tax revenues going down, and there's rising service level expectations of the community, and the aging infrastructure does require more work. So next, things that did not get funded that we how to keep an ongoing list for is that we need to be able to catch up on the fleet replacement program, that the reserves have not been funded at the levels that they needed to be in. Payment management and the PCI, we talked about that the last time our report or our inspection was done, and our payments need about $10 million a year in order to maintain the current PCI. So though we've made strides and we still do a good job at getting grants to help that, we're still short. ADA sidewalk upgrades as required by federal law. And one thing that is probably, and something that we haven't done, is though we think about our roads, we don't think about our traffic signal system. We have 89 traffic signals. Every one of those signals would be couple $1 million plus the related ADA improvements, to replace. We have no fund to replace our traffic signals. So we're holding on and hoping that the wires hang in there and we can stay on top of that. Not to go into all of it, but we've had a reduction in street capital program funding. REIT has been impacted the last couple of years. Staff was very conscious of that, and we actually forego applying for some grants these last couple of years, knowing that we just did not have the matching funds in order to meet those capital project match funds. So, anything else? And it's just a challenge. But this is my amazing staff, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, council, any questions? Councilmember McDaniel and then Councilmember Honda.
Awesome, thank you. Quite a bit of information. You guys have quite a large section in the budget, actually. I'll have to go back and look through the equipment. I'll have some questions on that one. I just have to drill through it real quick. The one question I do have on the equipment right now is on the budget on page 207. It has the Fleet and Equipment Fund, which is what I believe is part of the slides. My only question is that it doesn't have any of the police on it, which was a big chunk. Is all of it, other than the police department, on the slides that you presented us, or should I be looking at the budget instead of the slides?
Councilmember, police is the last 4 lines, but because patrol cars is just shown as
It's down here.
several quantities.
Oh, I know that's what my question was. I know it's on the budget, but it wasn't, I didn't see it on the slide, so I was just trying to understand
Oh.
if,
Functionally, there's 2 separate fleets.
Yes, and Public Works only oversees the non-police vehicles, and so
Okay.
my presentation lists specifically only non-police vehicles.
okay, so swim, street, so all those fall underneath, but police will be taken out from the stuff you talked about then?
Correct.
Okay. And then should that have been part of the police then, or how do we discuss that? That's was that 1.4 or something? Would that have been part of the police?
It could have been. I know that the chief mentioned the incremental addition to the fleet. As far as the ongoing replacement, that's part of the existing budget. That wasn't a new component.
So, please bear with me as I try to understand what you're saying. So on page 207, when it says police and it has the $1.4 million, you're saying that's an ongoing, that just stays as a budget line item every year?
Yes, they're replacing 16 vehicles in 2025 and 17 vehicles in 2026, I believe.
But because it's fleets is separate than the police budget? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you on that one. One of the questions I have is on employment. When I look at you guys' charts, it's a little different. You guys have like 0.73, 0.1, 0.38. I thought the city didn't break employees up to use them in different divisions. Is that what's going on? That somebody works a little bit for this one, a little bit for this one, a little bit for this one?
Exactly. That's basically how we're funded because, me personally, and I am the deputy director for all of Public Works, right? They take a little bit out of the swim fund, a little bit out of solid waste, a little bit out of streets, et cetera, to make up my one FTE.
Oh, okay. Nice. The other question I have is on Sound Transit. You have a box at Sound Transit. How many employees from Public Works works on Sound Transit, or specifically Sound Transit, or partially on Sound Transit?
We have 4. So I have 2 inspectors, 1 development services engineer, and 1 Sound Transit liaison. That's Ken.
Okay. And there is no reimbursement to the city for the extra expenses that are accrued by this?
There absolutely is. We utilize the funds that we receive from Sound Transit through our development agreement, and that's what we've used to purchase the vehicles, their computers. So, yes,
Does it also pay for payroll?
yes.
Okay. And what was that was used for it?
What else is used for?
No, what was the fund or the money mechanism for the payment of those?
We have a development agreement
Oh, okay.
with them. And before we have a development agreement, we have kind of a memo of understanding initially, such as for the operation and maintenance facility south. We have an agreement in place that pays us to help us even get through the environmental reviews and the other coordination that's going on right now.
Okay, so there is some, like you said, there is some money coming back to cover those fees?
Yes.
Expenses, okay.
Just real quickly, I would add that any position in the city, whether or not they're specifically designated in the development agreement to be funded by Sound Transit, if you spend time on a Sound Transit project, you can then bill, bill's probably not the right word, but.
Submit?
Yes, and then the city gets reimbursed for that time. That's, for instance, I could spend an hour reading a agenda packet for the OMF meeting, and I would put that on my timesheet, and then it would be, the city would get paid for it.
Okay.
Can I interrupt for a second, Paul?
Go for it, go for it.
Isn't the question, it seems to me it's being answered incorrectly, because anybody that does a development would be paying for an inspector or somebody that we do, just the way we do it, but I thought that at Sound Transit, the one person is Kent, or he works on the Sound Transit liaison. The other ones, anybody that developed in Federal Way would be getting charged for those services.
They do, but it's not 100%
But it-
cost recovery. And Sound Transit has specifically said, we don't want to say you're not staffed to
Okay.
process it in a timely manner. And so we said, that's great, give us some staff, and so that's what
So
this
the
accomplishes.
difference is they're reimbursing more than a developer would.
That's right.
Because they want the time.
Yes.
They're buying the time. Okay.
So just to make sure of clarification, in the development agreement, there is a conversation that's with the developers to make sure that there's financial coverage from someone who does a for the city staff on that development?
So each development agreement is different, depending on what the city and the developer agrees upon. This specific one with Sound Transit, as Desiree was talking about, there's a number of things that it lays out, but one of them is the idea of compensation and staffing. Other development agreements with regular developers may have that, they may not. It just depends on what the two parties want out of the deal.
Oh, interesting. That's new. Thank you. My next question goes to page 168, and this is for Director Grooms. I went through the budgets and went through each one of these, trying to understand how the funds were funded. And then I have questions on the swim fund and the transportation CIP fund on page 168 for the 200,000 on each one of those. I want to make sure those were accurate.
I can explain that. I can. I'm gonna look.
168, yeah. It'd be Fund 401 and Fund 306.
So this is the contra, it's called contra accounting. It would be the staff time that is charged to capital projects. That's allocated where the positions but originally budgeted within the 101 street fund, and then they directly charge their time to capital projects in the 304 surface water management capital fund and the 306 transportation CIP fund, similar to what City Administrator Davis just stated, in where staff can direct charge their time to the Sound Transit project. Staff also do that for capital projects within the 304 swim fund and the 306 transportation capital fund.
Gotcha. So would I not see the corresponding entry on the 306, page 196, to balance those two out?
The 306 and 304 funds have transfers in, and that's lump sum. So it would be a 397, which is a transfer in from various sources.
All right. So what I'm gonna, I matched every other one up with those two, so I'll take it offline with you two just to make sure I understand that, because I didn't see correlating funds to balance out the 200,000. So I'll take it offline. You guys can educate me on that side then.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Let's see. I think that's it for now, and like I said, I'll look at the vehicles and I'll get back to you guys on that one. Thank you.
Councilor Honda?
Thank you. There's a long list of vehicles that you would like to get in the next 2 years, and you guys always have a long list of vehicles. Do they need to be new, or could they be could they be used but in really good condition?
I'm going to ask, I don't know if we have a policy on what we do for vehicles. I think I've never seen it where we've purchased something used, to be honest.
I've asked before, and that's the answer I always get.
Yeah.
Well, the idea is that once you buy this vehicle, then it's got a useful life.
Correct.
So then then there are times in which we extend the useful life. But what we don't want to do is buy a car that we don't know, or buy a vehicle that we don't know the history of, and insert that in the middle of that process. I mean, that's why what you want to do is buy a vehicle, take great care of it, use it for its entire life, and then at that point, we've got vehicles that we've extended and extended and extended, but at some point, you gotta let it go, and then to the new car there to replace it needs to be new, so you start that process.
Well, I watch other city council meetings from around the country, and it's not unusual to hear them talking about buying a vehicle, but it's also not unusual to hear them talking about getting a very good used vehicle, especially for public works or parks. So that's why the question.
Well, I can imagine that we've had situations in which we had, either broken, damaged, unusable vehicles, and, wouldn't we consider, or not just a vehicle, but snow plows come to mind.
And actually, any of the snow equipment would be the last thing I would ever buy used, because it comes with all the salt and oh my God, we did it at Lakewood. It was the worst. We bought it from Pierce County to have our first plow. It was the worst decision we ever made. That thing, it's rusted where you don't even know it's rusted.
I'm not suggesting that.
But yeah, I'm not, personally, I'm not 100%, I'm not against the idea of finding a good used equipment. Very difficult to find right now.
Okay.
So that's the other thing is really, the economy is not there right now. And I think part of it could be the leftover from COVID that, sometimes used vehicles are more expensive than the actual value of a new vehicle in terms of the life longevity cost.
And then my next question is on streets and trees. We have a number of streets around the city where the tree roots are growing into the streets and causing some damage. And there's one, especially on 336th, which is getting worse and worse and worse. At what point will we be fixing those so that the streets do not continue to incur damage from the root of the tree?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have like an ongoing program funded to be able to do that. So now it's really been a one at a time when it has really gotten to the point where we can't just cut a root and fix the sidewalk adjacent to it and cross our fingers that a few more years we kick the problem down the road. So literally, that's kind of what we've been doing, 1 or 2 or 3 at a time as the need arises.
And then my next question is apprentices. Do we employ any here?
We do not employ any apprentices.
Do we have any that come from trade schools and shadow someone?
We have not had that, no.
Okay, thank you.
But apprentices would be on major projects that with contractors that we employ. Wouldn't the contractors have the apprentices?
Correct. And I apologize if I misunderstood you, Councilmember Honda. We have apprentices on our capital improvement projects now that is also required by state law, that we actually implemented 15% of the hours need to be accomplished by apprentices. And so one of our first projects now that we're doing that on is actually the Joint Operation Maintenance Facility. So there will be quite a few apprentices and apprentice hours on that job.
I just wanted to make sure that we were clear about that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Councilmember Dovey.
Question I have is on the vehicles that we're purchasing. I think I noticed that the Ford Interceptor utility vehicles are all, hybrid, or are they hybrid or electric or?
Hybrid.
Hybrid. So that's gas and power, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a rule that we have to do electric, or did we get rid of that? Because I remember years ago, we bought some electric, and I don't know how that all went, or I thought I did.
I don't believe the state technically has that rule anymore, but we've been generally trying to kind of maintain the same level of hybrid vehicles.
Try to stay away from electric, right? Because it takes so long to charge it.
Yeah, hybrids.
Hybrids are pretty good.
Hybrids have been pretty good.
Okay. And then the other question is, I noticed that we're getting some Caterpillars, this is, instead of, we have John Deere product now and we're going to Cat, is there just Cat's better or
That-
pricing's
yeah,
better or what
There's a
happened?
long list of reasons, and
Okay.
one of the challenges has actually been with our John Deere products, getting them actually serviced and maintained. Our mower has been down a lot, and nobody can seem to figure out how to fix it, and so we're kind of to our last straw.
Added up to here with John Deere, okay,
Yes.
got it, thank you.
Interesting, a great question, you guys. Councilmember Honda?
Thank you. On page 148, on performance measures, it says, number of service requests processed, and then the percent of community requests responded to in the same day. Is this Eyes on Federal Way? That's what it's called, right?
Yes.
That sounds right.
Sorry. Yes, and that is specifically from our administrative staff. So they still take a lot of phone calls and enter in the Eyes on Federal Way, by hand. Or if it's one that they need to remanage and send it immediately. So it's the amount that they touch. I believe that the amount of Eyes on Federal Way that Public Works receives is more than that. The ones that kind of go directly to the division manager that aren't of, say, urgent nature that we need someone to intervene on.
So my question is, so the number of percentage of community requests responded to in the same day in 2024, it says 90%. I hear from people who say that they've got something on, that they requested something to be done on Eyes on Federal Way that weeks later hasn't been touched. They haven't had whatever the issue is fixed. So when we say that responded to in the same day, that is maybe giving it to whoever is going to be fixing it?
Correct. That doesn't mean actually accomplishing the work. It means that the person that made the request is being responded to and said that we have received it.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember McDaniel?
Yeah, I actually have a follow-up, real quick, just to make sure I understand. The 5 new employees, what is the actual job description they're going to be doing again?
Okay, so they all fall within maintenance. I believe we designated it's maintenance, 2 maintenance worker ones that would be added to the clear crew. And then 2 more maintenance worker ones that would be added to surface water management as part of that new ditching program. And 1 maintenance worker 3 who would be the lead for that particular program.
Gotcha. And then do we utilize any of the court crews or the work crews that we were talking about earlier with Judge Larson?
We have in the past, we just haven't had any available to us recently.
Okay, but that is something that is open option?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Council, any other questions from Desiree? Great job, Desiree. Thank you. And thank you for the work you and your team do every day. All right, council, any follow-up or discussion on this? Councilor Honda?
I'd kind of like to talk about the process for the budget. This is Paul's first budget process. And so I have more questions now after listening to the directors. So on Wednesday, we'll hear from more of the rest of the departments. And then following that, we'll have other budget meetings where we can bring up more questions.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, just send us I would just say, just send us an email. We'll get back. We'll make sure the full council has access to that information. And then, keep those handy for when we finally start working as the council starts grappling with all of it.
So one thing we did, I think the last budget or maybe 2 budgets ago, we asked every council member to send in what they wanted. Different council members had different requests that they wanted. Should we encourage council members to do that in the beginning now? I have a few specific things I'd like to see that is not in this book. So should we ask all council members if they have any specific requests to do that?
Yeah, Brent, what are your thoughts?
I would say yes, because
Yeah.
the request, as I mentioned a couple days ago, this is a lean year, so if there are requests that are not in the budget, we're going to have to do some adjusting. So the more you can give us time to prepare for that, then we can be ready at the next meeting when we can present the solution to you.
Okay.
I might suggest if you could keep track of it for now and then wait until after Wednesday until all the departments have presented, it might make sense to then gather all your requests and send it to them, because then we can make a better analysis based on what you've submitted, rather than trying to play catch up at every
Piecemeal
meeting.
it. And we want to make sure we capture all of it,
Yeah.
and that we fully consider it, to make sure we do justice to it. But the other thing is obviously, I think, because it's tight, and because we hit all of the, the required, surplus funds, there's not a lot of room to work with. So if we add 50 here, we're going to have to take 50 out somewhere else. And so that's actually where, we'll have to find consensus with the council if we really want to add something. Obviously, I'm not to be the master of the obvious here.
No, but we say this every time. If you
That's
want
right.
something, you have to remove something.
That's right. Councilmember McDaniel?
Yeah. Thank you for I was watching YouTube videos of previous years to try to figure stuff out, so that makes it a lot easier. I do have a question on, we got the salary schedule, and I'm reading through it and trying to understand it, but the only thing I don't understand is it tells me the amounts depending on how long they've been here, but I don't know like what I don't want to know everybody, but there's a few of them. So what's the best way to reach out to find that out?
I would talk to probably either Steve Groom or Vanessa.
Okay.
Because that's a budget thing, and what we'll try to do is, if it, just depending, but I think, Steve, would you be the right person, or would it be Vanessa?
Either one. We've prepared a salary schedule. We have a position schedule that lists the name of the position. It shows what the steps are, and it shows what the grade is. The grade is where each position is assigned that has, depending on how long they've been with the city, different steps.
Yep. All right. I got it. Thank you. I'll shoot you guys the email then.
So the longer they've been with this city, the more likely that they are higher up on the pay scale.
That's correct. Generally, employees advance one step per year.
Okay, and then when they get to grade 6, then they're kind of stuck.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. All right. Hearing no further questions, we are adjourned. Thank you.